Chapter 81. I heard you have a daughter, 16 this year? Zhang Erge's sinister voice sounded behind the man with glasses. The man with glasses felt a jolt in his heart, and his face instantly became extremely ugly. It is well known in the shelter that Zhang Erge is lustful. This question may not be well-intentioned. The man with glasses mustered up his courage and said tremblingly, "Lord, my daughter is still young and ignorant." Zhang Erge's eyes turned cold, and his tone was cold. "What's wrong with being young? It's okay to be ignorant. I can help you discipline her. Wait a minute. Let her come to me, and I will have a good talk with her." The man with glasses was so scared that he knelt down in front of Zhang Erge and begged in a humble tone, "Lord, please spare my daughter. I will agree to anything you ask me to do." Zhang Erge narrowed his eyes slightly, a little impatient. "If you dare to talk nonsense again, I will turn your whole family into reserve food." The man with glasses paused suddenly. As the supervisor in charge of logistics, he naturally knew what reserve food was. A sense of powerlessness rose in his heart. Before the end of the world, he was at least a director. Now he couldn't even protect his family. He stood up in despair and walked out of the office with heavy steps. Zhang Erge watched the man with glasses leave helplessly, and then he lay on the bed with satisfaction and waited for the man's daughter to come. At the same time, Long Hao, the head of the search team, was making the final pre-war mobilization. In order for this operation to succeed, the entire search team can be said to be elite. This time, Long Hao directly sent 600 people, led by him personally. All these people came from special forces, and each of them was very strong in combat. In addition, Long Hao learned that Ling Feng's villa had a very strong defense capability. He specially equipped everyone with the most advanced rocket launcher. Originally, he wanted to bring the powerful artillery in the shelter, but he had to give up because of the inconvenient transportation. Even so, he was confident that the individual weapons currently carried by the soldiers were enough to blow open Ling Feng's door. On the training ground, 600 soldiers stood neatly in the training ground, and everyone was full of momentum. Long Hao nodded with satisfaction, and he must successfully complete the task this time. He walked up to the platform quickly and prepared for pre-war mobilization. "Comrades, today's mission is not for anything else, but only one purpose. That is to avenge the dead brothers. 100 of our brothers were brutally killed by Ling Feng. If I don't avenge this, I don't deserve to be the captain. I hope everyone will show the spirit of fearlessness and avenge the dead brothers. Do you have confidence?" As soon as Long Hao finished speaking, the soldiers made a sound that resounded through the sky. "Yes, yes, yes." Everyone looked angry, with murderous eyes. Long Hao waved his hand. "Let's go." The 600-man team began to adjust their formation and prepare to set off. At this moment, an anxious voice came from a distance. "Wait a minute." Ma Wu squeezed out of the crowd and quickly came to Long Hao. "Captain Long, you can't go," Ma Wu said with a look of panic. Long Hao looked at Ma Wu with an unpleasant expression, and a trace of displeasure flashed in his eyes. He said coldly, "Ma Wu, what do you mean?" The soldiers who were originally preparing to leave also stopped and looked at Ma Wu with a questioning look. Ma Wu has a long military service and strong military qualities. His prestige in the army is extremely high, even slightly higher than Long Hao. So the soldiers were also very curious about why Ma Wu suddenly came out to stop him. Ma Wu quickly walked to the platform and said in a hoarse voice, "Brothers, why do we join the army? To protect the lives and property of the people. But now, what are we doing? We are using violence to suppress plunder. What have we become? We have become accomplices of crime and executioners. What is the difference between us and bandits? This is completely contrary to our beliefs. Is this what we want? Brothers, ask yourselves if this is really right." As soon as Ma Wu's words came out, there was a commotion in the crowd. Some soldiers frowned and began to think. Some soldiers looked at Ma Wu blankly. "Enough!" Long Hao shouted sternly, with a gloomy face. "Ma Wu, don't disturb the morale of the army here. Everything we do is for the better development of the shelter Ma Wu looked at Long Hao with a sneer on his face, his eyes full of sarcasm. For the shelter? I think it's for the better enjoyment of some people. Since this damn weather. After coming here, when have we ever experienced the life of a normal person? We are divided into different classes. The big guys enjoy rich food and comfortable rooms, but what do we, the warriors who have been through life and death, get? We don't even have the most basic dignity. Do they treat us as human beings? At the end, Ma Wu's voice was almost roaring. Shut up! Long Hao's chest was heaving with anger, and he took out a pistol and pointed it at Ma Wu's head. Ma Wu, if you keep talking nonsense, I will shoot you. The soldiers around hurried forward to dissuade him. Ma Wu was not afraid of the gun against his head, and looked at Long Hao with firm eyes. Captain, don't let the brothers go to die again. You can't beat Ling Feng. Long Hao looked at him with disdain. I think you were scared by Ling Feng. Just watch me, how I defeat Ling Feng. He ordered his signalman to remove Ma Wu's weapons and asked two people to watch him all the way. Ma Wu sighed helplessly and could only follow the main force. The whole army began to move towards the destination, and it was expected to arrive in one day. At 6 o'clock in the morning, Ling Feng got up on time to cook. After the tossing and turning of the previous night, Lin Su was still sleeping soundly. Ling Feng saw that she was sleeping soundly, so he didn't call her. He simply made a preserved egg and lean meat porridge, took out a few packets of semi-finished soup dumplings and crab roe dumplings from the space, and put them on the steamer, and then made a few fried eggs. After all the food was ready, Ling Feng went upstairs to call Lin Su to get up and eat. Lin Su rubbed her eyes with sleepy eyes and sat listlessly on the chair. Ling Feng served her a bowl of porridge and put a fried egg on the plate for her. Eat first, then sleep. Lin Su nodded lazily and ate in small bites. She slept for only 2 hours last night, which caused her to be seriously sleep-deprived now. She still felt a little pain in her body. Ling Feng, who also slept for 2 hours, was still energetic because of his high physical fitness and did not look tired at all. I still have a lot of different styles of clothes there. Why don't you try them again tonight? Ling Feng looked at her with a smile on his face. Lin Su shook her head when she heard this. No, I can't stand it anymore. No matter what you say today, you have to let me rest for a day. Ling Feng could only shrug regretfully. After the two finished their meal, Lin Su returned to the bedroom to continue sleeping. Ling Feng was ready to go out. He had an appointment with Wang Long yesterday to go to the industrial park to find power generation equipment. Another day full of hope. I hope today will go well. Ling Feng prayed in his heart. Chapter 82. Ling Feng drove his motorcycle to the outside of Wang Long's villa. He comfortably lit a Furong Wang and took a puff, then took out the satellite phone to call Wang Long. After receiving the call, Wang Long quickly walked out of the villa, holding a piece of bread in his hand, eating while walking. After coming to Ling Feng, he sat directly on the back seat of the motorcycle. Let's go, Wang Long muttered with his mouth full of bread. Ling Feng drove the motorcycle towards the outside of the community. Perhaps because Ling Feng had violently killed many people outside the villa before. The roads outside the entire villa area are very safe, and no one dared to come out to block the road. The two drove quickly towards the East District in peace. The whole journey is expected to take 1.5 hours, and the distance is relatively far. When the car was halfway through the journey, Ling Feng saw a familiar place. Kiliga Farmers Market. Most of Ling Feng's supplies were purchased here, with a total value of more than 20 billion. Ling Feng looked at this place with some emotion. It used to be very prosperous with constant flow of people and traffic. Now there is only a vast expanse of white snow. I wonder if there are any useful supplies here? Why don't we go in and take a look? Wang Long suggested. Ling Feng thought about it and felt that such a large place might have some useful things in it. So he changed the driving direction and drove towards the market. After the two arrived at the gate of the market, Wang Long jumped off the motorcycle, and Ling Feng also put the motorcycle into the space. The two began to search aimlessly in the market. Fengzi, there are footprints here. Wang Long suddenly shouted and waved to Ling Feng. Ling Feng's expression changed slightly, and he walked over quickly. Sure enough, he saw some messy footprints. Judging from the number of footprints, there are at least a dozen people on the other side. A gleam of light flashed in Ling Feng's eyes. The two of them looked around cautiously. In the end times, in such a wild environment, it is not a good thing to encounter people, especially encountering more than a dozen people. People are always the most dangerous species. The two of them carefully moved forward slowly along the direction of the footprints. At the same time, they opened the safety of all the rifles in their hands, loaded the bullets, and were ready to shoot at any time. The two walked about 200 meters along the footsteps. Sure enough, they found a team of more than a dozen people in front of a building. These people wore different clothes, and the weapons in their hands were mostly cold weapons such as long knives and iron rods. There were no guns, and Ling Feng was slightly relieved. It seems that this group of people should be a group of ordinary people, and they will not pose any threat to the two of them. Just then, a woman in a black leather coat walked out of the crowd opposite, looking at Ling Feng and the others with a vigilant look. The woman was about 20 years old, with a slender figure and an oval face. She looked very capable and heroic against the backdrop of a black leather coat. The woman was slender, but not thin. She had thick black hair tied into a ponytail behind her head. Her whole body was in perfect proportion, especially her long legs, which were long and straight and eye-catching. In Ling Feng's mind, although this woman's appearance was not as good as Lin Su's, it was not much different. However, she and Lin Su had two different styles of appearance. Lin Su was a cold and elegant lady, while the one in front of him was heroic. Ling Feng did not react much to the woman's beautiful appearance, but Wang Long next to him looked like a pig brother. His saliva was almost flowing out. Du Yibai looked at the two people who suddenly appeared in the distance with an indifferent expression, and his eyebrows were slightly frowned. The two looked at him with a frivolous look, especially one of them stared at him with a lustful look. It was disgusting to look at. Damn man! Du Yibai cursed inwardly. She stretched out her hand and pointed at Ling Feng and the others in the air. Instantly, several thick and long steel pipes rushed out of the ground and floated in front of her. Then she turned her hands in a circle, and the steel pipes followed the rapid rotation of her fingers, and finally all were neatly arranged in the direction of Ling Feng. Ling Feng's eyes moved slightly, and he looked at this scene with some surprise. Superpower? I heard Ma Wu say that the ruler of the shelter was a superpower before, but he had never seen one before, and today he actually met a superpower. My luck is not ordinary bad. At the same time, a bad premonition rose in my heart. This woman would not deal with me. Sure enough, the woman pointed with both hands. Several thick and long steel pipes were directed towards Ling Feng, and the others it flew towards them quickly, causing bursts of air-breaking sounds in the air, and arrived in front of them in the blink of an eye. At the critical moment, Ling Feng pulled Wang Long's clothes and quickly dodged to the side. The steel pipe whizzed past Ling Feng's clothes on his chest, bringing a gust of wind, and finally inserted deeply into the ground. Wang Long looked at the steel pipe on the ground with a frightened face. His expression was a little ugly. A trace of murderous intent flashed in Ling Feng's eyes. This woman killed him without knowing the truth, which was really arrogant. Ling Feng was about to take action. The woman on the opposite side spoke first, and a cold voice sounded. You rats from the Spark base, if you dare to follow me again, I will kill you directly. After she said that, she waved her hands, and the steel pipe that had just been inserted into the ground rose again, floating quietly in the air, and slowly turned towards Ling Feng's direction. Ling Feng had a black question mark on his face. What base? This sister probably recognized the wrong person. Wang Long on the side said with resentment. What a shitty base, you attacked us for no reason. Isn't it a bit too much? Just because you look good, you can be unreasonable? Du Yibai sneered, obviously not believing his words. If you are not from the Spark base, why are you following us? Wang Long said unhappily. Is this place yours? We come whenever we want. What's your business? Du Yibai's face turned red at Ling Feng's words, and she saw her hands exerting force again. In an instant, dozens of steel pipes were pulled out of the snow and flew towards Ling Feng. Ling Feng was very angry at the woman's temper of taking action at the slightest disagreement. She thought she could kill people at will just because she had a special ability. Ling Feng moved. In a breath, he came to Dewey Bai. Dewey Bai was shocked by Ling Feng's speed and was in a state of confusion. He hurriedly retreated to the back and at the same time directed the steel pipes behind him to attack Ling Feng. She didn't expect Ling Feng to be a superpower, and he was extremely fast, almost instantly approaching her. Ling Feng saw her retreating to the back and didn't give her a chance. He accelerated again, went around behind her, and grabbed her neck with his right hand. He just discovered that this woman's superpower should be a mage skill of remote control, but it is definitely not good for close combat. As long as he can quickly approach her, he can quickly resolve the battle, and the final result is not unexpected. Dewey Bai found that her hands were firmly controlled by someone from behind, and a trace of panic rose in her heart. She didn't expect the opponent to be so fast and so strong, and she was defeated in just a few seconds. "Kill me if you dare," Dewey Bai said fiercely. "Release our captain." The team members behind Dewey Bai started shouting at Ling Feng with anger. Ling Feng's speed was too fast just now. They couldn't see Ling Feng's whereabouts at all. By the time they could see clearly, their captain had been caught. Chapter 83. Ling Feng looked at the woman in front of him, and she looked even more beautiful when he saw her from a close distance. However, although she looked beautiful, Ling Feng did not let down his guard. He pinched her neck tightly with his right hand. This woman was a superpower, and she might attack him at any time. "I told you, I'm not from the Spark base, and you dare to attack us. Are you looking for death?" Ling Feng asked coldly, with icy eyes. Dewey Bai realized that he might have recognized the wrong person, but he still said stubbornly, "How do I know if you are? Who told you to follow us secretly?" In today's society, people's hearts are unpredictable. Who knows what your intentions are? This was the first time that Dewey Bai was so close to a man, and she felt very uncomfortable. Especially Ling Feng's palm pinched her neck tightly, making it difficult for her to breathe. Ling Feng smiled a little when he saw her making excuses. "This place is not yours. Besides, we came in openly. You attacked us without knowing the truth, and now you are blaming us. How do you think you should compensate us?" Dewey Bai was furious. "You two just glanced at me several times and thought I didn't see it, right? If I hadn't seen your frivolous eyes, I wouldn't have attacked you." But she didn't say this. "What compensation do you want?" Dewey Bai asked helplessly. Ling Feng thought for a while and said slowly, "Answer me a few questions, and I'll let you go." Dewey Bai was secretly relieved when she heard this. She was afraid that Ling Feng would make some excessive demands. She had just prepared to fight to the death. She didn't want her innocence to be tarnished. "What's the problem? How did you appear and activate your superpowers?" Dewey Bai was a little surprised by Ling Feng's question. She didn't expect him to ask this question. Isn't he a superpower himself? Why do you still ask this question? Aren't you a superpower yourself? Why are you still asking? Ling Feng did not refute her misunderstanding and continued to speak along with her words. "I just want to verify whether my superpower activation is accidental." Dewey Bai thought for a while and slowly spoke. "To be honest, I don't know what happened. I also found that I suddenly had superpowers after the extreme cold weather." "What is your superpower?" "Control all gold-based things." Dewey Bai answered honestly. Ling Feng loosened his hands. Dewey Bai gained freedom and instantly distanced himself from Ling Feng, breathing heavily. "We are even." After Ling Feng finished speaking, he prepared to leave with Wang Long. Dewey Bai looked at the direction where Ling Feng left, his face full of shame and anger. He suffered a big loss today, being so intimately touched by a grown man. It's so infuriating. Seeing their boss' unhappy face, the other members of the team lowered their heads and pretended not to see, fearing that the boss would take it out on them. Ling Feng took Wang Long to another area of the market, ready to search for useful information. The two talked and laughed, and just halfway through, they saw 4 or 5 people coming out from behind a building not far away and walked straight towards them aggressively. They looked like they were coming with bad intentions. These people were holding machetes in their hands and wearing uniform clothes. It seemed that they were not the same group of women as the previous group. Ling Feng and Wang Long did not take these people seriously. These people were ordinary people, and they could easily deal with them. When the group of people came to a distance of less than 10 meters from them, they stopped. One of them said fiercely and arrogantly, "Stop! This is the business of the Spark base. You two can't leave." Ling Feng didn't say anything, and Wang Long directly retorted without any hesitation. "I don't care what base you are from. Get out of here. If you dare to do that again, I will kill you." The leading man was immediately furious when he heard this. It was the first time he heard someone dare to talk to the people from their Spark base like this. "Fuck, he's looking for death, brothers, kill him." Several people raised their weapons and attacked the two of them. Ling Feng was too lazy to attack this kind of people, and said casually to Wang Long, "I leave it to you. Remember to leave one alive." Wang Long nodded and looked at the group of people with a smile on his face. He hadn't hit anyone for a long time. Today was a good time to stretch his muscles and test his current strength. Wang Long twisted his neck and quickly rushed to the empty opposite side. He acted quickly, with fierce and tricky moves, clean and neat, without any unnecessary movements. He was a fighting champion in the army before, and it was easy for him to beat these people. Moreover, his body has been transformed by genetic serum, and all aspects of his body data have been comprehensively improved. In just a few seconds, several minions were knocked to the ground and lost their lives, leaving only the man who just shouted. But now he no longer has the arrogant attitude just now. He is standing there with a terrified face, and his legs are shaking constantly. Ling Feng walked up to him and asked coldly, "Who are you, and what are you doing here?" "I am from the Spark base. We are here today to ambush the people from the Yuan base. Our boss said that everyone in this market must be killed." After saying that, he looked at Ling Feng with a pleading face. "Boss, I am also following orders. Please don't kill me. Where is your boss now?" "He is in the direction you just came from. He has taken his brothers to encircle and suppress the people in Yuan base." After asking, Ling Feng signaled Wang Long with his eyes. Wang Long stepped forward and slapped the temple of the minion with a palm. The minion screamed and died on the spot. Wang Long walked in front of Ling Feng and asked, "Should we go and watch the excitement?" "Let's go and see." Ling Feng guessed that the Yuan base was referring to the beautiful girl they had just met. This Spark base dared to encircle and suppress a superpower. Maybe their boss was also a superpower. The battle between the two superpowers was just right for him to watch and understand the battle between superpowers. Ling Feng and Wang Long returned the same way. Before they reached the place, they heard the sound of fighting coming from inside. The two quickly found a hidden position and watched from a distance. On the field, two groups of people were fighting fiercely, and one of the groups was led by Dewey Bai. However, the situation on the field was obviously not in her favor. The people in the Spark base were several times more than them, and they were obviously well prepared. The Yuan base suffered heavy losses, and there were only 7 or 8 people left on the field. Moreover, they were surrounded by the people in the Spark base, and it seemed that they could not hold on for much longer. "Zhang Jichao, you are despicable and shameless." Du Yibai looked at the man not far away with anger. Chapter 84. Du Yibai looked pale, and the dozen elite members of the base he brought with him were almost slaughtered by the people on the opposite side. A middle-aged man with a wretched look on the side of the Spark base stared at Du Yibai with a lustful look. "Du Yibai, stop resisting fearlessly. Just surrender. I will love you well." "Huh?" The people of the Spark base laughed out loud. "Dream on," Du Yibai said coldly. Zhang Jichao's face paused, and his face was full of haze. "Sticky woman, you are shameless, right? Let me see how I will kill you later. Brothers, kill all the people in the Spark base except this woman." As soon as Zhang Jichao finished speaking, dozens of his men began to take weapons and besiege the members of the Spark base. At the same time, Zhang Jichao also began to act, and his figure disappeared in an instant, and when he appeared again, he was already 10 meters away. "Teleport!" Ling Feng, who was watching from a distance, looked at Zhang Jichao on the field with a shocked face. He didn't expect that this person's ability was teleportation. This skill should be considered a space-type ability. This ability is too troublesome on the battlefield. You never know where he will appear. Maybe he will appear in front of you, or he may appear behind you the next moment. It's hard to guard against. Ling Feng continued to observe the field. Du Yibai saw Zhang Jichao start to come towards him, and his figure began to retreat quickly. At the same time, he waved his hands, and dozens of steel pipes not far away instantly rushed towards Zhang Jichao. Zhang Jichao dodged sideways and used the skill teleportation again, coming to a distance of 3 meters from Du Yibai. He held a dagger and wanted to attack Du Yibai, but the dagger was directly sucked away by Du Yibai as if it was out of control. He did not use the ability again. Obviously, this ability is not unlimited, and it consumes a lot of energy. Without weapons and superpowers, he could only attack with bare hands. He threw a straight punch straight at Du Yibai's chest. However, Du Yibai dodged it flexibly. Ling Feng looked at the fight between the two people on the field and felt that it was meaningless. A fight between two weaklings. He originally thought that the superpowers would be very powerful and difficult to deal with. But after watching the fight between the two of them today, he found that it was just SOSO. Their skills were all too simple and had obvious flaws. Not as good as his own gene serum, which was all-round and had no flaws. Du Yibai should have some fighting skills, otherwise he would not have fought back and forth with Zhang Jichao. Although Zhang Jichao's teleportation skill was powerful, it did not pose a threat to him, and his extreme speed was not slower than his teleportation. Moreover, the use of his superpowers would consume a lot of energy, and the distance was also limited. It would be easy for him to defeat this person. The battle on the field continued. All the members of Luan Base had been eliminated by the people of Xingho Base, and all of them joined the team, besieging Du Yibai. Originally, the two fought hard. The addition of this group of younger brothers made Du Yibai confused, and soon he was exhausted and was about to lose. Zhang Jichao looked at Du Yibai, who was about to lose, with a smug look on his face, and was very excited. He couldn't sleep every day thinking about this beauty. Now he will succeed soon, and tonight he must ravage this woman well. Let her feel what it means to be a real man for 3 minutes. Du Yibai's physical strength was quickly exhausted and was controlled by everyone in Xingho Base. Little beauty, you finally fell into my hands, and your Luan Base will belong to me in the future. Zhang Jichao had a smug look on his face and reached out to touch Du Yibai's little face. Du Yibai turned around and avoided Zhang Jichao's salty pig hand, looking at him with disgust. Zhang Jichao was furious at her look. Stinky bitch. He then raised his right hand and hit her in the face. Just as he raised his right hand in the air, he suddenly felt a pain in his hand. He looked at his hands and found that his palms had turned into a ball of minced meat. Ah! He screamed in pain and looked around at the same time. He saw 2 people walking slowly towards him not far away. One of them was holding a sniper rifle in his hand. It was obvious that he was injured by this person just now. He endured the pain and shouted to Ling Feng. Who are you? Passers-by. After saying that, Ling Feng raised his gun and shot at him. Zhang Jichao's face changed, and he quickly used teleportation. His body instantly disappeared from the spot and appeared behind the members of the Spark Foundation. Everyone, get up. Kill these 2 guys, he said angrily to his younger brothers. The people in the Spark base stood there hesitantly and did not take any action. After all, Ling Feng had a gun in his hand, and they would be sending themselves to death if they went up, so no one dared to rush up first. You bastards, do you want to disobey orders? I will reward anyone who can kill this man with 10 boxes of instant noodles. The group of minions under Zhang Jichao were immediately excited. 10 boxes of instant noodles. This is a rich supply. It's enough for me to eat for a long time. With the material reward, the group of younger brothers under him were inspired and began to attack Ling Feng and the others. Du Yibai, who was controlled by several younger brothers, looked at Ling Feng with a complicated expression. I didn't expect this man to save her. He and this man were just casual acquaintances, and he didn't even know his name. Why did he save himself? Although this man is very powerful, the Spart base has a large number of people, and it may be difficult for him to deal with it. A trace of worry flashed in Du Yibai's eyes. Ling Feng looked at the approximately 40 thugs on the opposite side, calmly put away the sniper, and moved his wrist. Looking at Wang Long, the two smiled at each other. The two rushed towards the crowd with bare hands. Ling Feng's agility made it difficult to see the direction, and every punch he landed would take a life. Because his strength was too strong, those who were hit were directly headshot. Only a headless corpse was left, very bloody. Although Wang Long's strength was not that great, each punch could kill one person. The two punched very quickly. In just half a minute, all the people on the field were killed. Du Yibai's eyes were full of shock. She originally thought that it would be very difficult to deal with this group of people with Ling Feng's strength. But the reality was quite the opposite. He was too strong. He was so many times stronger than me. Fortunately, he didn't want to kill me just now. Otherwise, I would have died just now. Zhang Jichao's expression was extremely ugly. Dozens of younger brothers were all killed in less than half a minute. Even I couldn't do it. Originally, I thought that after I had the ability, my strength increased greatly, and I could do whatever I wanted here. Now it seems that it is simply seeking death. These two people are ridiculously strong, and I'm not a match at all. However, I am from the Spart base. I think as long as I mention my brother's name, this person should give me some face. Chapter 85. After Ling Feng dealt with a group of minions on the field, he casually wiped the blood off his hands. He looked at Zhang Jichao with an indifferent face. Do you know who I am? Zhang Zhongchao's eyes had regained their calmness at this time. His powerful backing made him dare to face Ling Feng with confidence. Ling Feng sneered. He was a little curious about what this guy would say to scare him. Who you are has nothing to do with me. Zhang Jichao was choked and speechless. He didn't expect this person to play by the rules. He took a deep breath and spoke slowly. I am from the Spart base. My eldest brother is Zhang Jibiao, the leader of the Spart base, and the most powerful superpower in this area. After saying that, he looked at Ling Feng with a proud face. He believed that as long as Ling Feng heard his brother's name, he would be scared to death and apologize immediately. After all, his brother's strength is well known in the East District, and everyone who sees him has to give him 3 faces. But unfortunately, he met Ling Feng. After Ling Feng heard Zhang Jibiao's name, his expression was calm. I don't know him. Ling Feng shook his head, indicating that he had never heard of him. Even if he had heard of him, he didn't care. If you dare to provoke him, he would just kill you. Anyway, his current strength can beat these superpowers, and his strength is constantly improving. He walked toward Zhang Jichao step by step and said in a cold tone, No matter who your backer is, it can't stop me from killing you today. Zhang Jichao realized that he might really fall here today, and the young man in front of him really wanted to kill him. His body kept retreating, and his tone began to weaken. If you kill me, my brother will not let you go. He is very powerful. You will not survive if you kill me. Ling Feng rushed over at a high speed and appeared in front of Zhang Jichao in an instant. He grabbed his neck with his right hand and lifted his whole body up. He said sternly, I hate others threatening me the most. If your brother dares to come and provoke me, I will let him go down and reunite with you. Zhang Jichao's face turned red. His neck was locked tightly. He couldn't speak, and his eyes were full of fear. Ka. Ling Feng directly broke his neck and threw him aside. However, Ling Feng seemed to think of something again and put Zhang Jichao's body into the space again. After dealing with Zhang Jichao, Ling Feng came to Du Yibai. See you again, beautiful girl. Ling Feng looked at Du Yibai with a chuckle. Du Yibai's face was still pale at this time. In the previous battle, her physical strength had been completely exhausted, and now she couldn't use any strength at all. She looked at Ling Feng and said seriously, Thank you for saving me. I owe you a life. I didn't save you, but this guy just happened to provoke me. Saving you was just an accident. Ling Feng lit a cigarette and said slowly. Wang Long walked in front of Du Yibai, took out an energy bar from his pocket, and handed it to her, saying softly, Eat something to replenish your energy first. Du Yibai gave him a kind smile took the energy bar, and said thank you. Wang Long looked at her with a smile on his face, his eyes almost touching her. Du Yibai felt a little uncomfortable with his eyes. Ling Feng looked at Wang Long's wretched appearance and shook his head helplessly. This guy couldn't walk when he saw a beautiful woman. But this girl was obviously not interested in him. Du Yibai ate an energy bar, and her body recovered a little strength, and her face was a little rosy. She stood up slowly and said to Ling Feng and the others, "My name is Du Yibai, and I'm the leader of Luan Foundation. If you need me in the future, just let me know." Wang Long waved his hand hurriedly. "You're welcome. It's only right to help others when we see injustice. Fengzi and I love helping others the most. Oh, by the way, let me introduce myself to you. His name is Ling Feng, and my name is Wang Long." Ling Feng didn't get involved in their conversation, but quietly walked aside. It was already noon, time to eat. He took out a gas stove and a can of gas from the space, lit it, and took out a pot to cook instant noodles. Now that he is powerful, he is not afraid of exposing his space. After a while, the aroma of instant noodles floated out. Although Ling Feng is not good at cooking, he is good at cooking instant noodles. When he was at home before, he ate instant noodles the most. And the instant noodles he cooked are not simple instant noodles, but high-end ones. He put ham, green vegetables, boiled eggs, beef rolls, fish balls in the pot. Mixed meat and vegetables, balanced nutrition. Du Yibai next to him smelled the aroma of instant noodles, and his stomach began to growl. She yelled and swallowed her saliva quietly. This was the first time she smelled such fragrant instant noodles since the end of the world. She didn't expect Ling Feng to be so rich. For others, eating a bucket of instant noodles in the end of the world was considered a luxury, but he actually put so many side dishes. And it looked delicious. So much so that when Wang Long was talking to her, he didn't care much, and his mind was full of instant noodles. "It's time to eat." Ling Feng greeted her and took a small bowl to serve noodles. Wang Long also stood aside with a bowl, waiting to serve noodles. Ling Feng looked at Du Yibai, who was standing there motionless, and said unhappily, "Come and serve it yourself." "Why, you want me to serve it and bring it to you?" Du Yibai stomped her feet in anger when she heard Ling Feng's words, but the instant noodles tasted so fragrant that she couldn't resist the temptation. She walked over and picked up a bowl, filled a bowl of instant noodles, and started eating it in big mouthfuls. I have to say the taste is really amazing, so delicious that it makes you cry. She couldn't help but speed up the speed of eating noodles. The big bowl of noodles was soon finished, and even the soup was drunk up by her. She licked her lips with satisfaction. Obviously not full, Ling Feng saw her embarrassment and directly took the pot and poured all the remaining noodles to her, which made her a little embarrassed. "Thank you," Du Yibai said with a slightly red face. She saw that there were not many noodles in Ling Feng's bowl. It seemed that he only ate that little bit in order to let her eat more, which touched her heart. Ling Feng certainly didn't know the plot in Du Yibai's mind. He ate less simply because he didn't like it. He was used to eating Lin Su's food, and it was a bit difficult to swallow these junk foods. He couldn't eat the delicacies in the eyes of others. If it wasn't because he couldn't eat Lin Su's dishes in the wild, he wouldn't want to eat these. After finishing their meal, several people sat around the gas stove and roasted the fire. Ling Feng and Wang Long lit a cigarette at the same time and started smoking. A cigarette after dinner. A happy whole day. What is the hatred between you and this spark base? Ling Feng looked at Du Yibai and asked casually. Du Yibai said with hatred in his eyes, "The people of the Spark base have always wanted to annex our base because our base is what they want." Chapter 86. Ling Feng immediately became interested. What could make the people of the Spark base so intent on eating up the Luan base? Du Yibai hesitated for a moment and said lightly, "Our base is built under a food processing plant. It has a complete food processing system. There are still a lot of raw materials such as flour in the factory. The people of the Spark base have always wanted to occupy my base. They organized several sneak attacks before, but I repelled them all. This time they chose to sneak attack when I was out. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid they would have succeeded this time." After listening to Du Yibai's words, Ling Feng was a little disappointed. He originally thought it was something very important, but it turned out to be some machines and flour. These things are what he lacks the least now. There are countless flour and rice in his space. What is the origin of that spark base? Why is it so awesome? Ling Feng asked with some curiosity. The leader of the spark base is Zhang Jibiao, who was originally an employee of a chemical factory. After the end of the world, he and his brother both awakened their superpowers. His superpowers are very powerful. He can control the gravity of the space within 10 meters around him, making it hard for people to defend themselves. Once ordinary people enter his gravity field, they will instantly bear dozens of times their own gravity, which can directly crush people into meat paste. He uses this superpower and Zhang Jichao's teleportation to cooperate. It can be said that he is an unstoppable existence. No one could defeat him in this area. The two brothers established the Spark base with their powerful superpowers. Several small bases around them were wiped out by him. Our Yuan base is the last one. After listening to Du Yibai's introduction, Ling Feng had a basic understanding of the Spark base. This Zhang Jibiao's superpowers are indeed a bit tricky, and ordinary people really can't fight. But it doesn't have much impact on him. Dozens of times the gravity have little impact on him. Ling Feng also asked Du Yibai about how to improve the strength of the superpowers, but unfortunately, she didn't know. She is still constantly exploring, and her strength is improving very slowly. After understanding almost everything, Ling Feng decided to leave. Today's task is to go to the industrial park. Now it has been delayed for half a day, and now it is time to go there quickly. Ling Feng also said goodbye to Du Yibai, and Wang Long waved goodbye to Du Yibai with a reluctant look. Ling Feng rode the motorcycle and continued to rush to the industrial park. There was no trouble along the way. After half an hour of full-speed driving, the two finally arrived at the industrial park. The current industrial park has been completely covered by thick white snow. Looking around, there is no trace of the industrial park at all. Wang Long looked at the scene in front of him in a daze. Oh my God! Why is there nothing? Ling Feng was also a little troubled. How can he find it? There is no landmark at all. The entire park is a full 100,000 square meters, so it is difficult to find the power generation equipment factory. It seems that we can only find it according to the approximate location, Ling Feng said helplessly. The two found a general location and prepared to start digging down. After half an hour of hard work, they finally dug to the top of a building. Ling Feng clenched his fist and smashed it hard on the roof. Bang! With a sound, a hole with a diameter of 1 meter was instantly smashed out of the roof. Ling Feng jumped directly without saying a word, jumped down, and then landed steadily. Wang Long followed closely and jumped down. The whole building was pitch black, and nothing could be seen clearly. Ling Feng took out a headlamp from the space and put it on his head and began to explore. After a simple observation with the help of the light, Ling Feng found that this was an excavator manufacturing factory, and they were now in a factory building where excavators were stored. After seeing the excavator, Ling Feng was overjoyed. The excavator is a good thing. It can be used to break ice and improve efficiency. I know this place. The factory next to him is the one that produces power generation equipment. After analysis, Wang Long quickly determined their location. Ling Feng put the excavator into the space and returned to the ground. Ling Feng took out 2 excavators from the space. After a brief familiarization with the operation, the two of them drove the excavators and began to dig on the ground. With the excavator, the two people's ice-breaking speed was significantly accelerated. Half an hour later, the two people dug 3 meters deep and exposed the roof of the building. Ling Feng put away the excavator and entered the factory with Wang Long. Begin to look for the generator. Sure enough, in the corner of the factory, a large generator was found. Ling Feng saw the nameplate of the equipment, the parameters of the generator. This is a super large generator with a power of 10,000 kW. Ling Feng was very happy. He didn't expect to find it so easily. With a wave of his hand, he put the generator directly into the space. After that, he found several small generators. There was nothing else to gain. After completing today's task, Ling Feng returned to the ground and prepared to return. He looked at the time. It was already 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He had to rush back as soon as possible. Otherwise, it would be dark soon. The two of them started their return journey on a motorcycle. They were safe all the way and returned home safely. Ling Feng drove the car to the door of the villa and saw Zhang Ning standing at the door waiting. "Master, you are back." Zhang Ning greeted him with a respectful face. "What's wrong? Is there anything?" Ling Feng said lightly. "It's like this, now the traps have all been laid. I want you to check it." Ling Feng's expression moved slightly. He didn't expect the traps to be so quickly, and he didn't expect the efficiency to be so high. "Okay, take me to see it." Zhang Ning took Ling Feng to check the traps. After the inspection, Ling Feng was very satisfied with Zhang Ning's work. Zhang Ning is worthy of being a construction company. He has a lot of experience in this area. The whole villa is surrounded by traps. Once ordinary people fall into it, they will either die or be injured. Ling Feng rewarded Zhang Ning with a roast chicken, and Zhang Ning was flattered. Although he said no, his body was very honest. His eyes were staring at the roast chicken. Ling Feng smiled silently and stuffed the roast chicken directly into his hand. Zhang Ning took the roast chicken and left with thousands of thanks. Ling Feng bypassed the trap and returned home carefully. As soon as he opened the door, Lin Su and Black Panther surrounded him. Chapter 87. Lin Su prepared a sumptuous dinner for him, and all kinds of delicious dishes were placed on the table. Ling Feng drooled at the sight, mainly because he was hungry. The lunch was too bad, and he was not full at all. As soon as Ling Feng sat down, he began to eat heartily. After the meal, he and Lin Su did a little exercise. After the exercise, Ling Feng came to the laboratory in the basement. He took out Zhang Jichao's body from the space and prepared to study it. After killing Zhang Jichao this morning, Ling Feng suddenly thought of these superpowers. After awakening their superpowers, their bodies will change. Maybe it will be helpful for his genetic research. Ling Feng cut Zhang Jichao into 8 pieces and began to study his brain structure first. Ling Feng found a transparent round crystal in his brain, which was about the size of a longan. It looked similar to the inner elixir of the giant python he killed before. Ling Feng was pleasantly surprised. This thing is a good thing. It can improve strength. Maybe there is a chance that some skills will be awakened. After taking the inner elixir of the giant python, his defense ability has been greatly improved. Ling Feng put this transparent crystal directly into the space for upgrading. After the upgrade, the system quickly gave information. Top-grade inner elixir. Contains very rich energy, can help the human body improve physical fitness, develop the brain 5%, and obtain teleportation ability. After seeing the information of the system, Ling Feng was shocked. Not to mention the previous information, the teleportation skill behind it made him laugh. It can actually obtain teleportation ability, which is a very practical ability. Whether it is escaping or sneak attacking, it is a very useful skill. Ling Feng took out the inner elixir from the space and threw it directly into his mouth. A strong energy instantly filled his whole body, and he felt warm all over, just like the effect of taking the inner elixir for the first time, and he felt very comfortable. 15 minutes later, this feeling gradually disappeared. Ling Feng slowly opened his eyes, stood up and stretched his body, feeling full of strength. At the same time, his brain was clear, and his brain had been developed to 30%, and the whole person felt like he had undergone a transformation. Feeling that his brain seemed to be able to control things, Ling Feng tried to concentrate his mind and tried to control a scalpel on the table. The scalpel magically floated in the air, and Ling Feng tried to use his mental power to move the scalpel forward and backward and circle, and all of them succeeded. Ling Feng was amazed. This feeling was really amazing. This is exactly the same as the sword controlling technique in the novel. Are those people also cultivating their brains? Or has he also awakened his superpowers? Ling Feng felt that he seemed to have discovered something. It seems that developing the brain is more important than improving physical fitness. I will focus on improving the brain in the future. Ling Feng is ready to test the teleportation skill to see how it works. He moved, and the whole person disappeared instantly. When he appeared again, he was already outside the villa. Ling Feng looked around in a daze, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. This teleportation skill can actually ignore obstacles. It's so abnormal. Ling Feng estimated that the distance he just teleported was about 100 meters. This is much better than when Zhang Jichao used it. This Zhang Jichao is really rubbish. Such a good skill is wasted on him. Ling Feng used the skill again, and the whole person returned to the laboratory in an instant. Ling Feng came to the gravity cabin to test the increase in strength. After testing, his strength has reached 480 times, an increase of about 120 times. Although the strength value has not increased much, the teleportation skill he obtained today has greatly increased his strength. In the future, in the battle with the teleportation skill, he can kill the enemy instantly. Ling Feng couldn't help but sigh. This psychic's inner elixir is really amazing. It seems that I have to kill more psychics in the future, so that my strength can be quickly improved. It's just that there are too few psychics. So far, I have only encountered 2 psychics. After testing the strength, Ling Feng took out the generator from the space. The generator has been upgraded by Ling Feng, and the current power has reached 1 million kilowatts. The power generation has increased, but the fuel consumption is really high. The diesel in stock on hand is not enough. Ling Feng plans to go out in a few days and find more gas stations to search for resources. The excavator he just got today has greatly increased his excavation speed. Ling Feng put his thoughts back and prepared to try out the effect of this generator. At this moment, the intercom called. Ling Feng picked up the intercom and began to reply. Young Master Ling, a group of about 100 people are coming towards us. I don't know who they are. It was the news from the sentry at the gate. Ling Feng said lightly. Okay, I know. Pay attention to concealment. After the call ended, Ling Feng had to give up today's training and go see who the unlucky guy is today. On the road outside the Zizuan villa, a team of 100 people walked slowly. Hu Santai, as the commander-in-chief of this operation, was protected in the middle by the villagers of Hujiazwang. For this mission, Hu Santai personally took action and took command. This time 108 people were dispatched, and basically all the young people in Hujiazwang came. In order to ensure the success of this operation, they found more than a dozen hunting rifles and made homemade cannons. With these weapons, they firmly believed that Ling Feng had no hope of survival. There was a trace of fatigue in Hu Santai's eyes. After all, he was old and had walked such a long way, so his body could not bear it. Although he was a little tired, Hu Santai was very excited. Don't act on your own. Wait until I give the order, Hu Santai said to the young people in Hujiazwang in a stern tone. Grandpa, will we leave any survivors later? A young man asked with a fierce face. Ling Feng killed his brother, and this time he came to avenge his brother. Hu Santai touched his gray beard and thought for a while, then said slowly, Ling Feng, this kid killed so many of us. We can't let him off too easily. Don't kill him later. Let him breathe. Let everyone vent their anger. Everyone in Hujiazwang smiled cruelly when they heard this. The group slowly approached Zizuan and soon arrived outside Ling Feng's villa. The villa was brightly lit at this time. Everyone in Hujiazwang looked at the villa and was attracted by the luxurious decoration inside. In addition, they saw an incredibly beautiful woman standing in front of the window in the villa looking at them. The woman had a perfect figure, and every move made people imagine endlessly. The eyes of these young men in Hujiazwang were full of madness, and their hatred for Ling Feng deepened. Such a beautiful woman. It was obvious that Ling Feng, the bastard, had plundered her. They wanted to rush in now and have sex with this beauty. Chapter 88. Hu Santai looked at the villa in front of him and became more determined. He glanced at the woman in the villa without noticing, and a trace of greed flashed in his eyes. Who cannot love a beautiful woman? Don't look at yourself as old. Lian Pu is old. Can he still eat? I can also fight on horseback. Begin the action, Hu Santai said in a deep voice. As soon as the voice fell, more than 100 villagers in Hujiazwang began to act quickly. The leading 20 or so young men rushed into the small courtyard of the villa like wild wolves with crazy eyes. Everyone was full of strength, striving to be the first to rush in, rushing forward one after another. Husantai sat in the rear as the commander, looking at his little cubs urinating blood one by one. Husantai touched his beard with satisfaction. His face was also filled with a confident smile, but the smile on his face froze the next second. As soon as the younger generation rushed into the courtyard, they stepped on the trap, and screams suddenly rang out in the crowd. Everyone hurriedly looked into the trap and couldn't help but gasp. The trap was full of wooden thorns and iron nails. The people who fell into the trap were all pierced with wooden thorns, and blood kept flowing out, which was very tragic. Some people were pierced in the soles of their feet and wailed in pain. More than a dozen people were pierced in the eyes, hearts, and necks and died on the spot. There were also a few lucky ones who were only pierced in the soles of their feet and limbs and were not in danger of life. They lay inside and wailed in pain. In order to increase the lethality of the trap, Ling Feng specifically instructed Zhang Ning to cover every iron nail and wooden thorn with feces. As long as you are injured by these traps, even if you don't die on the spot, you will eventually die of wound infection. Seeing the tragic situation in the trap, the crowd suddenly became agitated. Many people had a trace of panic on their faces. After hearing the screams, Husantai hurried over from behind to check. When he saw the scene in the trap, his expression was extremely ugly. Everyone here was his descendant, and the death of one of them made him feel distressed. Now more than a dozen people were killed or injured at once. How could he not be angry? He seemed to have noticed it, and his eyes moved to the villa, and saw a young man standing by the window looking at him with a smile on his face. Husantai's face was gloomy, and he gritted his teeth and said, "Save the people first." This time, everyone pulled the people in the trap up, but many people had lost consciousness, and the trap was deep. It took several minutes to pull all the people up. "Tianci, how are the people?" Husantai looked at the young man next to him with a serious face. "Grandpa, Zhuzi and Dashin are all dead. Only 2 are still alive, and the others are unconscious," Hu Tianci said with a crying face. Husantai was shocked and angry when he heard this, and his face turned pale instantly. Tianci, Zhuzi and Dashin were all his grandsons, and now Zhuzi and Dashin were all dead. He was the one who sent his son away. All this was caused by Ling Feng. Bastard. Ling Feng, you are simply a beast. I want you to live a life worse than death. Husantai kept roaring in his heart. He was silent for a moment, suppressed the sadness in his heart, and said in a deep voice, "Send 4 people to send the wounded back for treatment." Hu Tianci got the instructions from his grandfather and turned around to arrange for the wounded to leave. But he was grabbed by Husantai. Husantai whispered to him, "You leave with the wounded. Remember not to come back." Hu Tianci heard this and hurriedly refused. "No, I want to stay here and avenge Zhuzi and the others. I must kill Ling Feng with my own hands," Hu Tianci said with a face full of resentment. Husantai sighed, knowing that his grandson had a stubborn temper. He could not persuade him, so he could only wave his hand helplessly and let him go. He adjusted his breathing and said loudly to the villagers, "Children, avenge the dead tribesmen." The villagers were also extremely angry. This Ling Feng had killed dozens of them repeatedly. Many people's relatives were killed by Ling Feng. These people wanted to skin Ling Feng alive. Husantai looked at the angry people and continued, "Take out all our hunting rifles and explosives, blow up the glass and doors first, and then the rest of the people will rush in and quickly subdue Ling Feng." He suddenly thought of something and continued, "Don't kill innocent people. Don't hurt anyone except Ling Feng. I want to interrogate the young woman in the villa myself." Everyone in Hujiazwang started the second charge. This time they were much more cautious. 3 or 4 people carried homemade gunpowder and began to set it up. They placed the explosives at the gate of the villa and prepared to blow it up. Standing by the window on the 3rd floor, Ling Feng looked at the people below who were nervously setting up the explosives with disdain. He did not stop them. It was useless anyway, so he had to let them toss for a while. But the people in Hujiazwang really didn't know how to live or die. They killed a group of them before. Do they dare to come? It seems that I am still too kind, letting this group of unruly people think that I am easy to bully, right? Since you are looking for death, all of you stay here. But for now, let's watch their performance first and let them die in despair. The explosives were quickly set up, and Hu Santai showed a cruel smile. Ignite! At Hu Santai's command, Hu Tianxi pressed the button hard with both hands. Boom, boom, boom. Instantly, more than a dozen explosions sounded, and the entire ground began to shake. The villagers of Hujiazwang applauded and cheered, and were very excited. When the smoke from the explosives dissipated, everyone saw the scene inside, and their eyes were dulled in an instant. The gate stood there intact and motionless. How could this happen? Why can't even the explosives blow it up? What is this gate made of? It's so solid. The villagers showed despair in their eyes. Hu Santai looked at the gate. His expression was full of unwillingness, but he did not give up. He said loudly, "All those with guns, shoot at Ling Feng and keep blowing up the explosives." I don't believe that his gate will not be blown up. Hu Santai looked at Ling Feng with a ferocious face, his eyes red. The enemy was right in front of him, and he looked at him arrogantly, but he was helpless. It's so infuriating. He was so angry that his chest ached. Soon, under his instruction, a dozen villagers carrying hunting rifles began to load ammunition. After loading the explosives, they all aimed at Ling Feng, standing in front of the window, and then pulled the trigger fiercely. The pills hit the window with a bang, leaving no trace. Hu Santai didn't believe in evil, so he asked the gunmen to continue loading ammunition and shooting. Then the second round of shooting began, but it was still useless. Then the third round, the fourth round. Until the bullets were all used up, Ling Feng still stood there calmly, holding a handful of melon seeds in his hand, watching them like watching a play. Chapter 89. Everyone in Hujiazwang was in despair again and began to think of retreating. The enemy's defense was too strong, and they couldn't attack at all. What was the point of staying here? Hu Santai was extremely desperate. Could it be that he could only watch Ling Feng standing there and provoking him? This was more painful than killing him, but the things that made him despair were still to come. Ling Feng looked outside, and there was no movement. It happened that he had finished cracking the melon seeds in his hand. He patted the crumbs on his hands and took out the machine gun from the space with a relaxed look. Then he opened the window and looked at the villagers outside with ugly faces, with a smile on his face. "Asshole, come down and fight me. I will kill you." Hu Tianxi's eyes were red, and he pointed at Ling Feng and roared in incompetence and anger. Ling Feng smiled disdainfully. "Just you. I'm too lazy to fight with a piece of trash like you." Hu Tianxi was so angry that he wanted to fly up and beat Ling Feng. Hu Santai stopped Hu Tianxi, then walked to the front of the crowd alone and looked at Ling Feng with a gloomy face, saying, "Ling Feng, you killed dozens of people in my Hujiazwang. Don't you want to give us an explanation?" Ling Feng smiled faintly. "Explanation? This is the explanation." After saying that, the machine gun in his hand fired a burst of bullets directly, and 5 or 6 villagers standing in the front row fell down instantly and died on the spot. There were also more than a dozen people standing in the back who were shot to varying degrees. The screams continued to ring out in the crowd. "Are you satisfied with this explanation?" Ling Feng said coldly. You are simply lawless." Hu Santai pointed at Ling Feng and roared, his body shaking with anger. "You will be punished, and the people of my Hujiazwang will never stop fighting with you." Ling Feng laughed out loud when he heard the words. Mo Ran said, "In that case, you don't have to leave. All stay here." At the same time, the machine gun in his hand fired wildly at the bottom. Hu Santai stood in the front and suffered the most intensive firepower, and the whole person was shot into a sieve in an instant. "Grandpa!" Hu Tianxi burst into tears instantly, but he had no time to be sad and hurriedly dodged the dense bullets. Under the strafing of Ling Feng's machine gun, the villagers below fell down in pieces like wheat being swung by a sickle. Without Hu Santai's command, the whole team was in chaos, and more than half of them were lost in just a few seconds. Run! The crowd began to flee outside. Even the wounded on the ground were ignored. Ling Feng held the machine gun and ruthlessly fired at the running villagers, without any ripples in his heart. Soon, more than 100 people in Hujiazwang were lost, except for a few people who ran faster. He was too lazy to chase them. They were just some small karamis, and they couldn't make any waves. Ling Feng looked at the corpses on the ground and called Zhang Ning directly on the intercom to let him deal with the corpses. After putting away the machine gun, he came to take a hot bath. After a tiring day today, he could finally have a good rest. In the vast darkness, Hu Tianxi ran quickly with several surviving villagers from Hujiazwang. Everyone's face was full of fear. The scene of Ling Feng slaughtering the villagers just now had been deeply imprinted in their minds. They were really scared. Now whenever they thought of the name Ling Feng, their legs trembled. But fortunately, they escaped by luck. They ran for several miles, and when they saw that no one was following them, they dared to stop and rest. They kept panting and looked at each other, with bitterness in their eyes. More than 100 people came here aggressively, but in the end they fled like lost dogs. Hu Tianxi stared at Zizawin with a knife-like gaze, his eyes full of sadness. His two younger brothers and grandfather all died at Ling Feng's hands in this operation. His heart was filled with hatred, and he vowed to make Ling Feng pay with blood. The huge hatred made it difficult for him to breathe. He couldn't help but roar to the sky. Ling Feng, I will kill you. He was so angry that he spurted out a mouthful of blood, and his face turned pale. He felt as if his brain was pierced by thousands of steel needles, and then he fell to the snow. Seeing this, several companions hurried forward to check. One of them held a finger in front of his nose to check his breath. It's okay. He's still breathing, but he's angry. They all breathed a sigh of relief, and then carried him towards Hujiazwang. When Hu Tianxi woke up, it was already the next morning. He opened his eyes and saw that there were people surrounding his bed, including his parents and several people who had escaped with him last night. Companion. Tianxi, you scare me to death. If anything happens to you again, I won't be able to live. Hu Tianxi looked at his mother, who was in pain and tears. His expression was full of grief. It was just one night, but his mother seemed to have aged several years. Hu Tianxi hugged his mother and said with red eyes, Mom, I'm useless. I couldn't bring my two brothers and Grandpa back. Whose mother wiped the tears from the corners of her eyes and said in a hoarse voice, It's good to be able to come back alive. Listen to Mom and don't bother Ling Feng anymore. Mom doesn't want you to get into trouble. Hu Tianxi nodded heavily, but he didn't think so in his heart. Revenge must be avenged, but his strength is not good now, so he can't go there blindly to die. He has to accumulate strength, and when he is strong enough, he will definitely kill Ling Feng to avenge his grandfather and brother. He is confident that he will succeed. While he was unconscious, he felt his body change. His body seemed to have endless strength. At the same time, his perception became stronger, and both his hearing and vision had undergone earth-shaking changes. In fact, he had woken up a long time ago, but he had been feeling the changes in his body. As a senior fantasy novel bookworm, he was very familiar with this change, which should be the awakening of certain physical conditions mentioned in the novel. After comforting his mother, Hu Tianxi came to the outside of the village alone. Finding a quiet and deserted open space, he was ready to try his physical condition. He stretched out his hands and pressed the ground in the air, and dozens of ice spikes about 1 meter long instantly grew on the entire ground. Then he tried many ways to use the skills. Hu Tianxi's eyes were full of eagerness and excitement. He had the ability to control ice and snow. In this era of global freezing, he was the king of this era, carrying a blood feud. He awakened an unparalleled physical condition in despair. A perfect male protagonist in a novel. Hu Tianxi is full of ambition. His sights are no longer limited to this small Hujiazwang, but the entire Shangjing city, and even the entire Longhua. Ling Feng, just a jumping clown, just an ant that he can kill at will, and his woman will eventually become his plaything. I, Hu Tianxi, am the master of this chaotic world. Chapter 90. Ling Feng, Accept the Punishment. Hu Tianxi was full of vigor and vowed to walk out his own invincible road. At this moment, a group of hundreds of troops slowly walked towards the direction of Huji Azwang, and Hu Tianxi frowned slightly. Although the distance was far, he still found that this was a group of powerful troops, and each soldier had a good momentum. What are these people doing in Huji Azwang? Hu Tianxi was ready to act according to the situation. He stood in place, put away his invincible temperament, and stood quietly on the side to observe. Now that he has a heaven-defying physique, he is not afraid of a team of hundreds of people. This is the courage of the skilled. Soon this army came not far from Hu Tianxi. He roughly observed that the number of people in this army was about 600. Everyone carried weapons on their backs, and some even carried small rocket launchers, machine guns, etc. The troops stopped advancing less than 50 meters away from him. A middle-aged man in officer uniform walked out of the crowd. He looked very imposing and was obviously a leader. This man was none other than the leader of this army, Long Hao. Long Hao quickly walked in front of Hu Tianxi, smiled kindly, and said, "Young man, is this Huji Azwang?" When Hu Tianxi heard the words Huji Azwang, a trace of vigilance flashed in his eyes, and he said cautiously, "What are you doing?" Long Hao smiled faintly when he heard this. "Don't be afraid, young man. We are an official army and have no ill intentions. Today we are on a mission and passed by Huji Azwang. We want to find a place to rest here." Hu Tianxi looked at the man and didn't seem to be lying. The army behind him was also disciplined and should be an official army. He then let down his guard and said with a smile, "This is indeed Huji Azwang. Come with me." Hu Tianxi enthusiastically pulled Long Hao to the village, and the team behind him followed him in neat steps. "Hey, I really trouble you this time," Long Hao said apologetically. Hu Tianxi waved his hand hurriedly. "No trouble, no trouble. You protect our safety and selflessly dedicate yourself. This is what we should do." Hu Tianxi took Long Hao to the ancestral hall, reported to the elders of the clan, and arranged a resting place for the soldiers. In the ancestral hall of Huji Azwang, Long Hao and the elders of Huji Azwang sat together, talking about something. Long Hao frowned. His face was extremely ugly. "I didn't expect that Ling Feng would be so cruel and inhumane. As an official, I solemnly promise to all the villagers here that I will definitely eradicate this scum and avenge the more than 100 villagers who died tragically in our Huji Azwang," Long Hao said with a righteous face. Upon hearing this, several elders in Huji Azwang were all excited, and they were moved to tears. "Captain Long, I thank you on behalf of the villagers who died in our Huji Azwang." One of the elders bowed to Long Hao with tears in his eyes. "At the critical moment, our official army is still reliable." Several elders sighed. Long Hao exchanged a few words with several elders and continued. "Now that the young generation of our Huji Azwang is basically extinct, I suggest you go to our official shelter. There will be a place for you to stay and protect your safety." When the elders of Huji Azwang heard this, they were very excited. "If we can really get official shelter, it will be great. No more worries, hunger, and cold. Captain Long, we will listen to your arrangements." The man who spoke was Hu Jiangwo, the younger brother of Hu Santai. After Hu Santai died, he took over the position of the chief of Hu Santai. Long Hao nodded and said sincerely, "Since everyone is willing to go to the shelter, I think everyone should pack up quickly, collect all the food, and bring it back to the shelter. I will send a team of soldiers to escort them back to prevent accidents. Then all villagers should pack up their belongings, and after we eliminate Ling Feng, we will lead everyone back to the shelter. What do you think?" Hu Jiangwo agreed without thinking. Official promises are still trustworthy. Just follow Captain Long's arrangement. I will notify each household to pack up and collect food now. The meeting ended in a peaceful atmosphere. After completing this conversation, Hu Jiangwo took several elderly people in the village to notify each household. Long Hao smiled, left the ancestral hall in a carefree manner. Just after walking a short distance, the signalman behind him couldn't help but whispered, "Captain, are we really going to let these people go to the shelter?" Didn't the Lord forbid us to increase the number of people? Longhouse said coldly. Just transport their food back. As for the people, let them wait. After saying that, Longhouse strode away. The signalman looked at Longhouse's figure, and his expression changed. I really didn't expect the captain to do things so decisively, transporting all the food away and then not caring about the lives of these people. Is this still the captain I know? Longhouse came to his temporary office and prepared to take a rest. Just when he was about to lie down, bang sound. The door was kicked open by someone. Ma Wu walked in with an angry face. Longhouse was unhappy. Ma Wu, what are you doing? Ma Wu looked at him angrily. Longhouse, are you still a human being? You cheated all the food of these villagers. How can you let them live? Longhouse suddenly stood up and roared. Ma Wu, you are so presumptuous. You dare to talk to me like this. Do you still have the concept of superiors and subordinates? I don't need to report to you what I do. Someone put him in solitary confinement for me. Soon, several soldiers came in and surrounded Ma Wu. One of the soldiers said to Ma Wu with a tangled face, Brother Ma, don't make it difficult for the brothers. Ma Wu sighed at the group of soldiers, stopped talking, and left with them. He stopped at the door. He said with Longhouse on his back, Longhouse, you don't deserve to wear this military uniform if you do this. After saying that, he left without looking back. Longhouse punched the table with an angry fist, smashing the entire tabletop. His face was extremely ugly. Time soon came to the afternoon. The villagers of Hujiazwang moved very quickly, and all the food was collected together, filling up a large flatbed truck. Hu Jiangwo found a few Alaskan dogs to help the soldiers pull the cart. These Alaskan dogs were raised by a villager in their village. After the end of the world, they were directly taken by the village as public sled dogs. After the end of the world, cars could no longer be used, and they could only rely on this primitive way to travel. Longhouse was very excited when he saw a group of soldiers pulling a cart of supplies away. With this batch of supplies, he could get a lot of benefits from the Lord. Seeing that it was getting late, he was also ready to leave with the soldiers, and it was time to do business. When he was about to leave, Hu Tianxi suddenly appeared and asked to join the team to go to Zizhuan together. Longhouse originally disagreed with him joining, but Hu Tianxi said that he was very familiar with the layout of Ling Feng's villa and could act as a guide. Longhouse then reluctantly agreed to let him join. After a day of rest, the soldiers' mental state had recovered, and Longhouse gave an order. The team started to set off and headed towards the destination. Chapter 91. Suburban area of Shanjing City. Underground safe house. MK Shanjing branch. Wang Chong sat on the sofa, holding a cigar in his hand. His face was extremely ugly. Kwang Hu lost contact. What this means is self-evident. Kwang Hu, as a top-ranked genetic warrior in the company, actually failed. This Ling Feng is really difficult to deal with. When he thought of the ultimatum given to him by the company on the satellite phone today, his face turned pale. I'll give you a week. If you still can't get the genetic serum, then come to the company to be a test subject yourself. The cold voice on the other end of the phone hung up the phone after saying that. As a senior employee of MK Company, he knew that the company always did what it said. If he was really pulled to be a test subject, what kind of treatment would he suffer? That would really be a monster that could neither live nor die. And he would become a monster that was neither dead nor alive. When he thought of this scene, he felt cold all over, and his body couldn't help but tremble slightly. As for escaping, don't even think about it. The strength of the company was beyond his imagination. The MK Company in public was just a little bit of the company's fur. Even though he was a senior employee of the company and had worked in the company for more than 10 years, he was still just a peripheral staff member. He had no right to know the core secrets of the company. According to a buddy at the headquarters, the core members of the company could smash a half-meter thick steel plate with one punch, and their strength was incomparable. This strength can no longer be described as terrifying. Ling Feng. A trace of madness flashed across Wang Chong's eyes. He issued an order to summon all the masters of the branch. This time he was ready to send all the elite out, and if he failed, he would die. This time he dared not take it lightly and underestimate Ling Feng. Being able to kill Kwang, who was enough to prove his strength. This time, a careful plan must be made to ensure that there is no mistake. At the same time, in the Spark base, Zhang Jibiao stood in the office, silent, with a cold look, and the temperature of the whole room also cooled down. The other senior executives of the Spark base in the room were all silent, fearing that they would offend the boss. The boss always doted on his younger brother and always responded to his requests. This time his younger brother was killed and his body was gone. It was hard to imagine how angry the boss was. Are you sure that the second brother went to encircle and suppress the Luan base? Zhang Jibiao said coldly. One of the old men came out and trembled. The second master said yesterday that he would take the brothers to eliminate the Luan base and left early in the morning. Why didn't he report to me when he took people out? Zhang Jibiao looked at him straight, his tone cold. The old man's heart skipped a beat, and cold sweat broke out on his back instantly. He said in a trembling voice, I thought you... Bang! The old man hadn't finished speaking when he turned into a pile of mud in an instant. The pupils of the people on the field trembled slightly, and they lowered their heads one after another, not even daring to breathe. Zhang Jibiao retracted his right hand that had just exerted force, and his face eased. After killing a person, his sad mood was also relieved a little. However, when he thought of the tragic death of his beloved brother, he couldn't control his violence in his heart. His brother was his only relative. Both of them lost their parents when they were young. He led his brother to live a difficult life. He and his brother worked in a chemical factory and thought they would live their lives in a muddle. Unexpectedly, after the end of the world, the two of them unexpectedly awakened their physiques. Moreover, the two of them could cooperate with each other in their abilities, and it can be said that there was no rival in this area. The two quickly established a base and lived a life like a local emperor. Unexpectedly, just after a period of leisurely life, his brother was killed by thieves. He hated it so much. Without my brother, the strength of their Spark base will also be greatly reduced. Luan base. Zhang Jibiao gritted his teeth and said, with a hint of murderous intent in his eyes, Do we buy right? I want your entire base to be buried with my brother. But he has an important thing to do now. Let Dewey Bai, this bitch, live for 2 more days. He glanced at the senior management of the base in the room and said in a deep voice, Notify the brothers below to take their personal supplies and follow me to Wangzhuang Mine at night. Yes. Everyone left Zhang Jibiao's office with a sense of relief and was glad that they had escaped a disaster. Zizwen. Ling Feng got up comfortably, walked to the window, and looked out the window. Zhang Ning was busy setting traps with his men. Yesterday, in the battle with the people of Hujiazwang, all the traps were destroyed, and now they need to be set up again. The bodies in the yard have also been dealt with. Ling Feng is very satisfied with Zhang Ning's work efficiency. He went downstairs and had a simple breakfast, then came to the laboratory. The generator that he upgraded yesterday, but before he could try it, the people of Hujiazwang came. It happened that I had nothing to do today, so I could study it carefully. Although I haven't met an opponent yet, I can't be proud and complacent. The strength of these superpowers is also different, and there will definitely be powerful superpowers. In addition, their strength can also be improved, so I must improve my strength as soon as possible. At the same time, I also need to let Lin Su speed up the progress of developing gene serum and make plans for the subsequent strength improvement. Ling Feng walked lazily to the side of the generator. This generator occupies a large area, and it basically occupies the empty space in the basement. He filled up the generator with all the fuel it needed. It must be said that the fuel consumption of this generator is really high, which made Ling Feng feel a little painful. It seems that he still needs to collect more fuel. This thing is really too important to him. He took out a cable from the space and connected it to the generator and held it in his other hand. He started the switch. He didn't dare to turn on the power at full power for the first test. If he turned it on at full power, even a strong physique like him would be destroyed. In the first test, he only turned on 1% of the power. At the moment of power on, Ling Feng felt that his whole body was pierced by thousands of steel needles, and his whole body was tingling, and his veins were bulging. Sweat kept oozing out of his skin. As time passed, Ling Feng's body began to become numb, and the pain gradually weakened. In the end, there was only a little numbness all over his body. Ling Feng turned off the switch and exhaled heavily. Looking at the time, the whole electric shock therapy lasted for 2 hours. After resting for a while, Ling Feng felt that he had recovered a lot. It seemed that there was a stream of energy flowing around in his body. He walked to the gravity cabin and started extreme training. Chapter 92. 500 times gravity. 600 times gravity. 650 times gravity. After an hour of gravity training, Ling Feng's maximum tolerance reached 700 times. Ling Feng looked at the data display screen of the gravity cabin, and the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. A lot stronger again. Just one training, his physical fitness value increased by 200 times. The strength has been improved again. Now, I should be able to fear no bullets. Ling Feng felt that when he reached 1,000 times the tolerance value, his body should undergo a qualitative change. My current strength should be ranked among the best in Shanjing City. Ling Feng calculated in his mind. Ling Feng came to the side of the generator and put the generator into the space. This machine takes up too much space, so it is more convenient to put it into the space. After cleaning up, Ling Feng looked at the time. It was almost 8 o'clock in the evening. My stomach also began to protest. I wonder if Lin Su has finished cooking. Just when I was thinking about going to eat, Ling Feng suddenly thought that Wang Long and Lin Su were still too weak, and they had to improve their strength as soon as possible. In the future, I will let them come to the gravity cabin to improve their strength. In the future, the enemies will become more and more powerful, and it will be difficult for them to protect themselves with their strength. Ling Feng came to the first floor and saw Lin Su busy cooking. He didn't bother him. Turn on the TV and prepare to play a game. There's a play. The Black Panther slowly walked to Ling Feng's feet and lay down. Ling Feng touched its head randomly for a few times. After these few months of growth, the Black Panther's body size has become larger and larger, and now it has exceeded 100 kilograms. The hair all over the body is black and smooth, and it looks majestic. Ling Feng looked at the size of the Black Panther, and the more he looked, the more wrong it was. Normally, a puppy of 2 or 3 months old would weigh only 30 to 40 kilograms at most. The size of this Black Panther is completely beyond the range of normal dogs, and its size is still growing, almost changing every day. Thinking of this, Ling Feng put down the game controller in his hand, squatted down, and observed carefully. The Black Panther seemed to have noticed something and raised his head to look at him. The 4 eyes met, a little awkward. The Black Panther took a look and then closed his eyes and went to sleep again. This Black Panther is not mutated, Ling Feng guessed in his heart. However, judging from his current reaction, he should have no ill will towards himself and Lin Su. Dogs are the most loyal animals. Ling Feng took out a chicken leg from the space and put it next to his nose. The Black Panther, who was originally sleeping, moved his nose slightly, and the whole dog woke up instantly and stood up immediately. He opened his mouth wide, stuck out his tongue, and kept rubbing his head against Ling Feng's arm, with a flattering look in his eyes. Ling Feng smiled slightly and threw the chicken leg directly to it. The Black Panther ate the chicken leg in 2 or 3 bites, and then looked at Ling Feng with expectant eyes. It seemed to say, not enough more. For the first time, Ling Feng found a humane look in the dog's eyes. Go get me a pack of toilet paper. The Black Panther ran out with a whoosh, and ran back quickly a few seconds later with a pack of tissues in its mouth. Ling Feng was sure that the Black Panther must have mutated and its IQ had increased. Because he had never taught the Black Panther these things, it seemed that it could understand what he said. Then Ling Feng tested it several times, and each time the Black Panther could complete the task accurately. Ling Feng smiled, and he actually had a dog that could understand human words. Tie pants. If it is trained in the future, it may become his own roaring sky dog. Just as he was thinking about how to train the Black Panther, a call came from the intercom again. Ling Feng looked as if he was used to it, and turned on the intercom and asked calmly, "How many people came this time?" The sentry on the other end of the phone seemed a little scared and trembled. "Too many. I saw at least 400 or 500 people, and they were all in military uniforms. Ling Feng's face froze, and a trace of surprise flashed across his eyes. I didn't expect them to spend so much money this time. So many people came. It seems that almost all the people in this so-called official shelter have come. This is good, so I don't have to spend more effort. Today, I will catch them all in one fell swoop. Ling Feng's eyes moved slightly, and he smiled coldly. Soon the army entered the villa area. Hu Tianxi followed Long Hao's side, giving him advice, and at the same time told Long Hao the layout of Ling Feng's home and the location of the traps. After discussing with Hu Tianxi for an afternoon, Long Hao gradually became interested in the young man in front of him. Gao looked at him. Hu Tianxi is very smart and can analyze things very well. Long Hao admires him very much and offers him an olive branch, inviting Hu Tianxi to join his army. Hu Tianxi, of course, agreed. He now has all the skills, but nowhere to display them. Now that he has connected with Long Hao, he can enter the official shelter and show his skills in the future. Captain Long, the one in the corner in front, is Ling Feng's villa. Hu Tianxi pointed to the villa in front and said respectfully, "Yes." Long Hao nodded. "Captain Long, this Ling Feng is very cunning. You must be careful to deal with him," Hu Tianxi reminded. "It doesn't matter. No matter how many tricks he has, they are useless in front of absolute strength." Long Hao smiled faintly and said confidently. Ma Wu, who was standing behind him, looked at Long Hao and wanted to warn him, but he stopped talking. Finally, he sighed and walked to the back of the crowd. Long Hao looked at the brightly lit villa with a fiery look in his eyes. The Lord said that there was a huge amount of food hidden in this villa, and all of them were high-quality ingredients. Not only that, there was also a stunning beauty in this villa. This was secretly told to him by the Lord's woman Yang Zihan. As long as he could break into this villa, this woman would be his. Thinking of this, his breathing became heavier. He began to arrange the battlefield in an orderly manner, surrounding the entire villa inside and out. He arranged 10 snipers alone. As long as Ling Feng dared to show up, he would be shot into a sieve in an instant. In addition, he also brought rocket launchers, grenades, explosives, howitzers, and other powerful weapons. Even if Ling Feng hides inside and doesn't show his head, he can use these hot weapons to blow Ling Feng into pieces. Hu Tianxi saw these soldiers with live ammunition tightly surrounding the villa. He was very happy. Facing these weapons, not to mention Ling Feng, even he, the chosen one, would find it difficult to escape, let alone Ling Feng. He wanted to watch Ling Feng being beaten to death so that he could relieve his hatred. Thinking that he would soon be able to avenge his grandfather and his 2 younger brothers, his eyes were wet. "Grandpa, Zhuzi, Dashin, I can finally avenge you today." Chapter 93. Ling Feng, who was standing on the attic, saw all of this. "I didn't expect that there was a small fish that escaped before." Ling Feng looked at Hu Tianxi with a playful look. However, this person seemed to have changed a little, and Ling Feng couldn't tell what the change was. In short, he was a little different from before, but he didn't care. He would solve it together later. Looking at this group of fully armed soldiers, Ling Feng didn't want to kill them from the bottom of his heart. After all, he was once one of them, but he had to do it. If he didn't kill them, he would die. So, blame your master. Ling Feng's eyes flashed a trace of coldness, and he looked at the people below with an expressionless face. At this moment, Long Hao below took out a big loudspeaker and began to shout at Ling Feng. "The one in the villa, I am Long Hao, the commander of this time. Now I order you to come out and surrender and strive for leniency." Long Hao shouted with a domineering look. Ling Feng sneered and looked at Long Hao below like a fool. He took out his mobile phone and opened the app that controlled the villa. There was a voice system in it. This voice system was connected to an amplifier on the roof. He could transmit the sound to the amplifier in real time by speaking on the mobile phone. He only discovered this function recently, mainly because it was useless and he didn't pay much attention to it before. It happened to be used today. Ling Feng took the mobile phone and started talking to Long Hao outside. "Surrender? I surrender to your mother's head. If you want to fight, fight quickly don't talk nonsense here. Ling Feng's arrogant voice was transmitted from the amplifier on the roof to the crowd below. Long Hao's face was extremely ugly in an instant. This Ling Feng was so ungrateful. He dared to scold him in public, which made him lose face. Ling Feng, don't be shameless. Long Hao had a cold face, and his words were full of threats. Ling Feng sneered. What's wrong with being shameless? Who do you think you are? You are a dog, and you dare to show off in front of me. Long Hao listened to Ling Feng's abuse, and his face turned blue and red. He yelled, "Fire!" Instantly, fierce artillery fire poured towards the villa, and the whole villa was bathed in flames. For a while, gunshots, cannons, and bombs were heard one after another. The huge smoke also enveloped the villa. This round of attack lasted for 20 minutes. Ling Feng lay on the floor of the attic leisurely, reading a novel, and occasionally looking at the battle situation below with a relaxed look on his face. His plan was very simple, that is, to wait until these people's ammunition was almost consumed and exhausted, and then turn on the slaughter mode to harvest the group of bugs below. Below, Long Hao, standing at the back of the team, looked coldly at the villa shrouded in smoke. Under the previous round of firepower coverage, the entire villa was probably directly penetrated. Long Hao walked to the front of the team with confidence, ready to check the results. When the smoke cleared, the smile on Long Hao's face froze instantly. Not only was the villa not penetrated, there was not even a scratch. Long Hao's heart was immediately filled with shock and turmoil. How could it be possible? Even if Ling Feng's house was made of iron walls and bulletproof glass, it should have been penetrated by the bombardment just now. But the villa in front of him was still standing there intact. What kind of material is this glass and wall? So solid. Just as he was thinking about how to proceed with the next move, Ling Feng's sarcastic words came from the roof again. Is this just the firepower? You boast a lot, but it doesn't seem to be that good. Long Hao clenched his fists tightly. His face was gloomy and water was about to drip out, and he shouted loudly in the direction of the villa. Ling Feng, don't be so arrogant. I'll show you how I blew up your villa. He strode to the back and came to a troop behind. He found the leader of the team and asked in a deep voice, "Are the things ready?" "Report to the captain. The howitzer has been assembled and can be fired," the leader said with a firm face. Long Hao nodded, his eyes full of murderous intent. In order to ensure firepower, he specially arranged for the soldiers to disassemble a howitzer as a secret weapon. I didn't expect Ling Feng's villa to be so strong, and now it can be used. This howitzer is the most powerful shell currently in service in the army, and its power is enough to blow up this villa. Under Long Hao's command, the artillery vehicle was quickly pushed to the front. Ling Feng in the attic also found this howitzer cannon. A trace of surprise flashed across his face. He was also very familiar with this type of shell, which was extremely powerful. I didn't expect them to bring this weapon here, but he was confident in the defense of his villa. His villa could even defend against nuclear bombs, so why should he be afraid of a small howitzer? Below, with the blessing of the howitzer, Long Hao's face was once again stained with a touch of confidence. He began to continue to provoke Ling Feng. Ling Feng, you should be familiar with this thing. Surrender now. As long as you kneel down and apologize to me obediently, I can consider sparing your life. Spare you, Shabi, Ling Feng's cold voice came. Long Hao's face was cold. Ling Feng insulted him again and again. Did he really think he was easy to bully? Long Hao threw his hat in anger and shouted hysterically. Fire! Boom! A huge sound came, and Ling Feng felt that the whole villa was trembling slightly. Ling Feng checked the area attacked by artillery fire through the surveillance and found that it was intact. Ling Feng secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that the construction quality of this security company is quite amazing. This way, I can rest assured and read novels with peace of mind. Long Hao looked at the intact villa with a dejected face, and a sense of powerlessness arose in his heart. Is there really no way out? Hu Tianxi, who was standing in the back and watching, had red eyes and an extremely ugly face. Even this powerful howitzer couldn't do anything to Ling Feng, so Is he really going to get away with it? He is really so cruel. Why? Why is his villa so strong? Is there really no hope for revenge? He looked at the villa, and a gleam of light flashed in his eyes. Since this group of people is unreliable, I can only rely on myself. Ling Feng, I will kill you sooner or later. Hu Tianxi gradually retreated behind the crowd and disappeared into the night. After a brief moment of distraction, Long Hao started the artillery attack again. He thought that the firepower of the artillery was not enough, and he would be able to break through as long as he attacked multiple times. The sound of continuous artillery fire rang out in the villa again. After a night, Long Hao looked at the villa with a crazy look on his face. After a night of fire coverage, the soldiers had used up all their ammunition, but there was still no progress. Chapter 94. Ling Feng looked at Long Hao, who looked like a madman, and the soldiers who looked exhausted. He also found Ma Wu in the crowd. However, Ma Wu's expression was extremely ugly at this time. He stood at the back of the team and did not participate in this attack. Get rid of this Long Hao first. A trace of murderous intent flashed across his eyes. He teleported directly in front of Long Hao. Long Hao was startled by the sudden appearance of the figure, and his whole body was instantly covered in cold sweat. There was no one in front of him, so how could a handsome young man suddenly appear? Who are you? Long Hao asked with horror. Ling Feng looked at him with a playful look on his face. Originally, I thought this Long Hao was a big shot, but I didn't expect him to be a coward. Such a small scene scared him so much, and I don't know how he became the leader. Didn't you always ask me to come out and surrender? Now that I'm here, why don't you recognize me? Ling Feng said lightly. You are Ling Feng. Long Hao instantly raised his voice, his eyes full of coldness. As soon as he finished speaking, the soldiers around him instantly surrounded him tightly. Dozens of loaded rifles were pointed at Ling Feng's head. Long Hao laughed loudly and looked at him with a smug look on his face. I didn't expect you to fall into the trap. What a fool. Weren't you very arrogant yesterday? Now let me see how arrogant you are. Ling Feng smiled slightly, his expression calm. Facing the heavy siege, he was not panicked at all. He looked at Long Hao and said casually, If you say you are shabby, you are. There is no need to confirm it many times. Long Hao's expression suddenly changed, and his eyes were cold and roaring. You are still so arrogant when you are about to die, you? Before he finished speaking, Ling Feng teleported over, directly grabbed his neck with his right hand, and lifted him up alive. Long Hao's face was red, and he kept hitting Ling Feng's arms with both hands. But it was useless. Ling Feng's body was very hard, and his palms were like a clamp tightly locking his neck, making it difficult for him to breathe. Let go of our captain, or we will shoot. The soldiers around him spoke coldly. Ling Feng turned around and looked coldly at the soldier who had just spoken. The soldier was stared at by Ling Feng's cold eyes. The whole person felt like falling into an ice cellar, and subconsciously took a step back. The other soldiers around did not dare to step forward rashly, but just watched. Ling Feng used a little force with his right hand to throw Long Hao 10 meters away. Long Hao fell heavily on the ground, and his body slid more than 10 meters away along the ground. The whole person lay on the ground like a dead dog, covered in blood. Long Hao turned over with difficulty and tried to get up, but failed several times. Finally, a soldier came forward to help him up with quick eyes and hands. Long Hao looked at Ling Feng with resentment. Several of his ribs were broken just now, and he was still in severe pain. Kill him. Long Hao gritted his teeth and said. The soldiers immediately opened fire, and dozens of guns fired bullets at Ling Feng at high speed. Long Hao laughed grimly and looked at Ling Feng with sinister eyes. Ling Feng looked at the bullets coming out of the barrel without paying any attention. Although these bullets were very fast, they were a little slow in his eyes. He could clearly see the trajectory of the bullets. He flashed and easily dodged the bullets. The whole person was like a phantom, and his whereabouts were uncertain. Ling Feng's hand was injured with a Tang sword, and the whole person became illusory again. When he appeared again, he had come behind the group of soldiers. The knife flashed, and a soldier's head flew up instantly. Then Ling Feng launched another attack. The besieging soldiers did not notice Ling Feng at all. More than a dozen people were beheaded in just 1 second. The soldiers standing in the distance wanted to shoot and aim, but found that they could not lock the target at all. Long Hao's face was full of horror, and a trace of horror flashed in his eyes. Why, who is he? He is faster than the Lord, no, much faster. He is a superpower. What kind of existence did I provoke? Long Hao was extremely desperate. Ling Feng on the field was simply a massacre. Soldiers had no power to resist, and soon more than half of them were killed or injured. Ma Wu walked to the front of the battle with an anxious face, his eyes red, and roared loudly. Ling Feng, I beg you, don't kill anymore. We surrender. Many of these soldiers were brought out by him, but now they died in front of him one by one. He is not like Long Hao, who only cares about promotion and wealth. He really cares about his brothers. Ling Feng, who was killing crazily, paused, put away his Tang sword, and appeared in front of Ma Wu. You can't even save your own life, and you still want to speak for them, Ling Feng said indifferently. Ma Wu's expression changed slightly, and he said with a sad face, I know that I can't avoid death today. These soldiers are forced to do so. They don't want to do this, but military orders are hard to disobey. If I die, I am willing to die if you can let these people go. Ma Wu looked determined. The soldiers on the field heard Ma Wu's words, and their eyes were red. Ling Feng's heart was also touched. This Ma Wu is a man, but he will not let these people go because of this. Do you think I will let my enemies go? Ling Feng said coldly. Ma Wu's eyes moved slightly, and then he said with a firm face, I am willing to bring these brothers to submit to you, and from now on I will respect you. As soon as the voice fell, Long Hao immediately roared loudly. Ma Wu, who do you think you are? I am the supreme commander of this unit. What qualifications do you have to surrender with the troops? Ma Wu glanced at Long Hao, his face full of resentment, and said, If you hadn't insisted on taking the brothers to take risks, they wouldn't have died. You followed Zhang Ergu to help the tyrant, tortured soldiers, and oppressed the people. You are not worthy of being the commander of this unit. I will shoot you. Long Hao glared at Ma Wu with his eyes and pulled out a pistol from his waist with his right hand. But before he raised his arm, he heard a bang. A blood hole appeared on Long Hao's chest, and blood was constantly flowing out. Long Hao looked at the wound on his chest with horror, and then looked at Ma Wu, who fired the gun. He didn't expect Ma Wu to dare to shoot him. And how did he get the weapon? He had already confiscated his weapon. Who gave him the gun? After that, he couldn't stand anymore. The soldiers looked at Ma Wu and killed the captain, and their expressions changed suddenly, but no one stepped forward to stop him. While these soldiers were shocked, they also felt a little happy. The boss who exploited them finally died. They had been resentful of Long Hao for a long time and had been unhappy with him for a long time. Now Ma Wu relieved their hatred, and they only respected Ma Wu. Chapter 95. Ma Wu turned around and looked at Ling Feng not far away and said in a deep voice, Long Hao is dead. I am willing to persuade everyone to submit to you. Ling Feng looked indifferent, without a trace of fluctuation in his eyes. Ma Wu was a little anxious, not knowing what Ling Feng meant. Ling Feng thought for a moment, said slowly, I can spare your lives. Ma Wu was delighted when he heard this. But, Ling Feng continued, only this time, if I see you being dishonest next time, all of you will die. After saying this, Ling Feng looked at Ma Wu with a pair of deep eyes. Ma Wu was chilled by Ling Feng's look and looked pale. Ma Wu quickly expressed his attitude and said with a serious face, Don't worry, this kind of thing will never happen. Once I find out, I will never show mercy. Ling Feng nodded. You should rest first. I will call you if there is anything. After saying this, Ling Feng turned around and left, and the whole person disappeared in an instant. The soldiers looked at Ling Feng's departing figure with awe. In the army, they always respect the strong. If there is a strong person leading them, they will be extremely proud. Ma Wu sorted out his emotions and began the army's aftermath work. Ling Feng leaned on the sofa with an uncertain expression. Lin Su came to him with a glass of ice cola and handed it to him. Are you in trouble again? Lin Su said softly. Ling Feng nodded and looked at the group of soldiers outside the window. What do you think should be done with this group of people? Lin Su chuckled. I think these people can be accepted. Ling Feng looked at her in surprise and motioned for her to continue. Lin Su said softly, these people are all good soldiers with rich combat experience. You can let them solve some small troubles in the future, saving you trouble. Secondly, Ma Wu is honest and loyal and is deeply supported by the soldiers. He is a trustworthy person. Finally, the world is in chaos now. You are alone and weak. It is difficult to compete with those people in the big bases. You still have to build your own forces to gain a foothold in this world. Lin Su's words are similar to what Ling Feng thought in his heart, but there was a little hesitation before whether to accept these people or not. After all, he originally just wanted to live a quiet life, but there will always be troubles. Even if you don't fight or grab, there will always be people who are blind and will stare at you. It seems that I can't be low-key anymore. After thinking this through, Ling Feng's eyes became firm. He hugged Lin Su and kissed her hard on the face, teasing. You are worthy of being my good wife. I will reward you well tonight. Lin Su's cheeks flushed. Listening to Ling Feng's words, her face was faintly looking forward to the evening. Ling Feng walked out of the villa. When he came to the door, he found Ma Wu, who was meeting with the soldiers. Seeing Ling Feng coming, he hurried over. Mr. Ling, you are here. Ling Feng nodded and strode to the front of the team. Looking at the more than 200 soldiers with firm eyes, he said loudly, Who am I? I don't think I need to introduce myself again. Since you are willing to follow me, I will say the ugly words first. What I need is a loyal, brave, and tenacious army, not a cowardly, sneaky, and slippery soldier. If I find such a person, I will clean up the door myself. The soldiers below heard the words. Their expressions moved slightly, and they looked at Ling Feng with a hint of complexity. They have seen Ling Feng's killing methods without blinking an eye. Ling Feng paused and continued. Of course, if you perform well, I will not treat you unfairly. Although your food cannot reach the level before the end of the world, it will not be too different. It is not impossible to reach the level before, but it depends on your performance and strength. After speaking, Ling Feng turned around and left without saying anything more. Before leaving, he asked Ma Wu to temporarily live in the empty villas in Zizhuan, and asked him to come to him to get food after he settled down. After Ling Feng left, the soldiers looked a little excited. They did not expect Ling Feng to be so arrogant. You should know that when they were in the shelter, they only had 2 meals a day, and each meal had only 1 steamed bun and a bowl of porridge per person. That porridge was no different from the water for washing pots, and there was not a grain of rice. Now Ling Feng actually promised to give them the same treatment as before the end of the world, which was much better than those high-level people in the shelter. Invisibly, the soldier's favorability towards Ling Feng has improved a lot. Although he kills people without thinking, he is not stingy with his own people. After receiving Ling Feng's order, Ma Wu began to look for an empty villa with his soldiers. The efficiency was very fast. In less than an hour, everyone was basically settled. Ling Feng put all the supplies prepared in advance on the road outside the villa. Ma Wu brought dozens of soldiers to receive them. When he saw the supplies, his expression was shocked. Looking at the mountain of supplies in front of him, he was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. Ma Wu looked around and saw a full range of supplies. Flour, rice, vegetables, pork, rich and complete. Enough for more than 300 people to eat for a month. In addition to food, there are also bedding, cotton clothes, and other cold-proof supplies. Ma Wu walked up to Ling Feng with an excited look on his face and said respectfully, Thank you for your generous gift, Mr. Ling. I don't know how to thank you. Ling Feng waved his hand indifferently and said lightly, We are all brothers from now on. This little thing is nothing to me. As long as we work hard, we will be better in the future. Ma Wu nodded heavily and began to carry supplies with the soldiers. The soldiers looked at the food and swallowed their saliva. They haven't had a full meal for a long time. Today they can finally have a big meal. Everyone's face was filled with happy smiles. After distributing the supplies, Ling Feng called Ma Wu and Wang Long together. After Ling Feng briefly introduced them, he said, Ma Wu, you will manage your subordinates with Wang Long in the future. He is also from the Special Forces and has good strength. You should cooperate well in the future. Ma Wu nodded. Wang Long also looked firm and said seriously, Fengzi, don't worry, I will definitely cooperate with Brother Ma to manage this team well and improve the combat effectiveness of the soldiers. Ling Feng nodded slightly and ended the meeting. After sending Wang Long and the other two away, Ling Feng began to think about his next plan. First of all, he must eradicate this so-called official shelter, especially their leader, who has repeatedly provoked him and really thinks he has no temper. The most important thing is that Zhang Ergu is a superpower, and killing him can improve his strength. Since he got the inner elixir from the superpower last time, and his strength increased greatly, he is now very eager for superpowers. Chapter 96. According to Ma Wu, Zhang Ergu was originally just a gangster. After awakening his superpowers, he killed the leader of the official shelter and used brutal means to control the entire shelter. After becoming the actual controller of the official shelter, Zhang Ergu did not care about the development of the shelter every day and indulged in sensual pleasures every day. He also violently exploited the members under the shelter. The entire shelter was tortured and miserable. It seems that I have to find a time to go to this shelter, and these soldiers, I have to find a way to improve their strength. At their current level, they can deal with ordinary people. Once they encounter superpowers or genetic people, they're completely not enough. They can only be slaughtered. Ling Feng couldn't help but frown. This matter is indeed a bit difficult. If you want to improve their strength, there is only one way. He got up and went to the laboratory in the basement. In recent days, he has been busy improving his strength and searching for resources. He has never had time to study the genetic serum. I don't know if Lin Su has made any progress in his research recently. In the laboratory, Lin Su was wearing a white coat and doing experiments seriously. But she frowned slightly and looked a little gloomy. It seemed that she had encountered a problem. Ling Feng opened the door of the laboratory, disinfected his body briefly, and put on a white coat. Lin Su noticed his arrival and put down the work in her hands. Seeing Ling Feng, her frown gradually relaxed. Ling Feng smiled and walked to her side. What's wrong? What problem did you encounter? Lin Su sighed and said helplessly, the current experiment is good in all aspects, but the sequelae of the experiment cannot be completely eliminated. What are the main problems with the sequelae now? Ling Feng asked. If the experimenter uses the reagent, there will be some emotional impact, and other problems have basically been eliminated. Also, the current reagent can only increase the potential by 100 times at most. If it increases too much, the emotions will be out of control. Lin Su's expression was a little ugly after she finished speaking. She has been studying this problem for a long time, but has not been able to solve it perfectly. Ling Feng, take out the research data and start to analyze it carefully. Lin Su sat quietly beside him and waited. He always had a mysterious trust in Ling Feng. After all, his brain is not ordinary smart. Ling Feng's brain began to work frantically, and hundreds of pages of densely packed data in his hand were all memorized in his mind. He constantly analyzed and reorganized these data in his mind. For 2 hours, he sat there motionless, with his eyes slightly closed, looking for a solution to the problem. Fine beads of sweat began to appear on his forehead. Finally, at a certain moment, he suddenly opened his eyes. His expression slightly changed. A relieved smile appeared on his face. Have you thought of a solution? Lin Su sat next to him and asked with joy. Ling Feng nodded, and he took out one of the pages of data and said slowly, look at this data. After an hour of explanation, Lin Su finally understood his idea. It turns out that it can be solved this way. Lin Su suddenly realized, and then looked at Ling Feng with admiration. Husband, you are so amazing. The technical problem that had troubled her for a long time was solved by Ling Feng. It was really annoying. How did Ling Feng's brain grow? After solving this problem, Lin Su couldn't wait to get into the experiment again. She said confidently that she would be able to develop a gene serum without side effects within a month. Ling Feng left the laboratory with satisfaction. The full load of his brain just now made him a little tired. More tired than a battle. After solving the problem of genetic serum, Ling Feng decided to go out to find fuel. At present, his fuel resource usage is very large, especially the consumption of generators accounts for the majority. Another purpose of going out is to find the location of Yuan base. When he chatted with Du Yibai before, he learned that another superpower in the Spark base has the ability to control gravity. He coveted this skill very much. He wanted to find the location of the Spark base through Du Yibai and then kill directly. Ling Feng walked out of the villa and saw 10 people at the door of the villa, and a squad of soldiers stood guard at the door. After seeing Ling Feng, the soldiers saluted one after another. One of the veterans stepped forward and reported to Ling Feng. "Mr. Ling, we are the guard team arranged by Captain Ma. My name is Chen Shan. You can tell us directly if you have anything." Ling Feng nodded. "You have all worked hard." Ling Feng took out 2 packs of Huazi from his arms and handed them to Chen Shan, chuckling. "Give this to the brothers to share." After saying that, he patted his shoulder and left. Chen Shan looked at the Huazi in his hand. His throat moved slightly. As an old smoker, he had not smoked for a month. A group of soldiers underground saw Ling Feng leave, and they rushed towards Chen Shan one by one. Soon the 2 packs of Huazi were divided up. Chen Shan cursed speechlessly. "You bunch of bastards. Don't you know to leave 2 more for me?" Chen Shan took out the few Huazi that he had just saved with great difficulty. They were all wrinkled by the crowd snatching. He smoothed the Huazi, put it in his mouth, lit it and took a deep puff. "Ah, comfortable." Chen Shan puffed out a cigarette with a look of enjoyment. All his men closed their eyes one by one, enjoying the pleasure brought by dopamine. After leaving the villa, Ling Feng began to wander aimlessly in the villa area. The villa was full of patrolling soldiers, and each entrance and exit of the villa was heavily guarded. Ling Feng was very satisfied with Ma Wu's defense work, and he was worthy of being an excellent commander. However, the weapons of these soldiers still lacked firepower. Ma Wu said that many heavy weapons were placed in the shelter. Because of inconvenient transportation, they had never been used. Ling Feng was envious of these weapons. If he had these heavy weapons, the defense of his villa would definitely be improved by several levels. "It seems that we have to take down this shelter as soon as possible." Ling Feng's heart moved, and he made up his mind secretly. However, to be on the safe side, he should first increase his strength to 1,000 times before attacking. With his current training intensity, he can achieve it in a few days. Ling Feng collected his thoughts, rode his snowmobile, and prepared to go to the East District to find fuel and, by the way, find the location of the Yuan base. This time he chose to act alone, not with Wang Long. Wang Long's current strength is still relatively low, and the danger outside is still not small. Once he encounters danger, he will have to distract himself to protect him. Ling Feng rushed all the way and finally arrived in the East District after spending an hour. Not long after entering the East District, he found a large gas station. Ling Feng smiled and drove his motorcycle towards the gas station. Chapter 97. Ling Feng looked at the large gas station in front of him, and his expression was delighted. He took out the excavator directly from the space and began to operate the excavator to dig the frozen snow on the ground. With the experience of operating the excavator last time, Ling Feng's proficiency in operating the excavator has obviously improved a lot. It took about 1 hour for Ling Feng to easily clear the entrance of the oil storage room of the gas station. He came to the oil storage room and started to collect it with ease. The oil storage capacity of this gas station is very large, with more than a dozen large oil storage tanks. After Ling Feng collected these fuels into the space, he directly copied them 100 times. With these fuel supplies, he will not worry about fuel for a long time. Ling Feng was in a good mood, whistling, and walked out briskly. "I didn't expect everything to go well today," Ling Feng muttered complacently. After solving the fuel problem, Ling Feng prepared to look for the location of Yuan base nearby. As soon as the car started, he heard a roar in the distance. Ling Feng moved his eyes to the distance and looked carefully. Two large snowmobiles were driving towards Ling Feng at full speed. Ling Feng's expression changed slightly. This was the first time he saw a snowmobile driving besides him, and the direction of this group of people was obviously coming in his direction. He didn't know whether these people were good or bad. Just when Ling Feng was thinking, the two snowmobiles had arrived at the gas station. The car braked and stopped directly beside him. After the car stopped, 8 people got out of the 2 cars one after another. Each of the 8 people was sturdy, and judging from the way they walked, Ling Feng judged at a glance that these people were all martial artists, and they were extraordinary. Among the 8 people, there was a young man of medium build. He had an ordinary face, a neat crew cut, a solemn expression, and a majestic look. Although this person is not as tall as the others, his eyes are very aggressive and give people a very dangerous feeling. After these people got off the car, except for the young man with the crew cut, all the others came to Ling Feng and looked at Ling Feng with unfriendly faces. One of the round-faced men asked in a cold tone, "What are you doing here? Do you know that this is the place that the Storm Base has set its eyes on?" Facing this group of muscular men with extraordinary skills, Ling Feng said with a relaxed look, "Why do I have to report to you when I am here? Who do you think you are?" The round-faced man's expression suddenly became extremely ugly, and he looked at Ling Feng fiercely. "I think you were looking for it in the toilet." Bang! Before the round-faced man finished speaking, Ling Feng moved his body and flashed in front of the round-faced man and slapped him away with a big blow. The round-faced man's whole body flew up into the air, and I don't know how many teeth were knocked out, mixed with blood and water sprayed in the air. Finally, he fell heavily on the pillar of the gas station, and I don't know how many bones in his body were broken. Ling Feng said indifferently with a calm expression, "Remember to speak nicely next time, otherwise I can't help it." Just now, Ling Feng's slap was all in the blink of an eye, and the others didn't react in time. When they reacted, Ling Feng had returned to the original standing position again. The other few people were shocked. They didn't see clearly what happened just now. They only knew that the people on their side suddenly flew out. Several people looked at Ling Feng with fear, and their bodies gradually formed a group around Ling Feng. The young man with a buzz cut who was smoking by the car door not far away frowned slightly. Even he didn't see the slap from Ling Feng just now. You have to know that he is a superpower, and his body is far different from that of ordinary people. That is to say, if the slap just now hit him, he would not be able to dodge it. The young man with a buzz cut put away his contemptuous expression and walked towards Ling Feng. He looked at him with a gloomy face and said, "Which force is this brother from? Isn't it a bit too much to hurt my people from the Storm Base for no reason?" Ling Feng smiled coldly. "Too much? Dare to speak rudely to me? It's good enough to leave him alive. Before I change my mind, get out quickly, otherwise you will bear the consequences." The young man with a buzz cut laughed angrily. "You don't know how to live or die. This is the first time I've seen someone dare to speak to our Storm Base like this," Ling Feng said with surprise. "Storm Base? Is it that powerful?" The crew-haired young man looked at him with disdain and said proudly, "No wonder you were so arrogant. It turns out that you don't know our Storm Base. It's not your fault. To tell you, listen carefully. Our base is one of the largest bases in the entire Handong province, with tens of thousands of members and more than 100 superpowers. The leader of our base is extremely powerful, far more powerful than ordinary superpowers. Now you know what kind of existence you have provoked, right?" The young man with the crew cut said, looking at him with a playful look. "I believe that this country bumpkin will be scared to death after hearing this." However, the scene he expected did not appear, but Ling Feng looked surprised. "This kid must be scared silly. This expression. Ha, it must be," the young man with the crew cut said secretly. At the same time, Ling Feng's mouth corners slightly raised. "More than 100 superpowers? If I can absorb them all, how powerful will I be? I am so excited just thinking about it." Just when Ling Feng was thinking in his heart, the young man with a crew cut continued to say, "Why? Are you scared? As long as you kneel down and kowtow to each of us 3 times, say, 'Grandpa, I was wrong,' and then cut off your hands, I will spare your life." The young man with a crew cut looked at him with a sneer on his face. "What did you call me?" Ling Feng asked indifferently. "Grandpa." The young man with a crew cut emphasized his tone. "Hey, good grandson. Grandpa will treat you grandsons to big cakes today." A trace of coldness flashed across the young man's eyes. "Dare to play tricks on me? It seems that if I don't show you some color, you don't know how powerful I am." "How powerful? Let me see." Ling Feng smiled coldly when he heard the words, and his body moved instantly, attacking several people around him. He punched continuously and instantly attacked several people. Several muscular men had no time to dodge and were all blown away by Ling Feng. Bang! 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 After several dull noises, the remaining members of the storm base were all knocked away by Ling Feng's punch. They lay on the ground in a mess, groaning in a low voice. The young man with a buzz cut looked extremely gloomy. He stared at Ling Feng coldly and gritted his teeth and said, "Do you think you can be arrogant after defeating a few trash? Today I will teach you how to be a man and let you know that there are always people better than you." The young man with a buzz cut exerted force with his legs, and the whole person shot towards Ling Feng like a cannonball. Chapter 98. The shaved young man punched Ling Feng in the face. The surface of the fist emitted a faint flame. The temperature of the flame was extremely hot, and the air was slightly distorted under the extremely high temperature. Ling Feng looked at the flaming fist attacking him. His eyes flashed, and a trace of fighting spirit flashed across his face. Ling Feng roared and threw a punch. The fist rustled, like a tiger descending from the mountain, and hit the shaved young man's fist with great force. The two fists touched in the air in an instant, making a bang. The two retreated at the same time. Ling Feng retreated 2 or 3 steps, and the force on his body was relieved like a breeze. The shaved young man retreated more than 10 steps in a row before stopping. There was an imperceptible tremor in his right hand that had just punched. The shaved young man's expression did not change, but his heart had already been in turmoil. So hard. What a hard fist. His special ability can temper his body. It can be said that he has never met an opponent in terms of physical strength. But this person's physical strength is stronger than his. And the opponent's strength is also very strong. His arm now has a strong numbness. The young man with the crew cut looked at Ling Feng with fear and a serious look. Ling Feng looked at the other party's fist, emitting a faint flame with a look of surprise on his face. If he gets this special ability, his strength will definitely be able to reach a higher level. No matter what, the person opposite must die today. Ling Feng moved his body and waved his fist at the young man with a crew cut again. The young man with a crew cut looked gloomy, and a trace of ferocity flashed in his eyes. After activating his special ability again, the flame on his hand became more fiery and agitated. The cold wind blew, and waves of heat radiated to the surroundings. The two of them fought together in an instant. There were no fancy moves, and they were all punches to the flesh. The two of them punched each other more than 10 times in a row. The young man with a buzz cut became more and more frightened as he fought. For some reason, he felt that the opponent's strength was getting stronger and stronger. His fists were getting harder and harder. Now he had to endure severe pain every time he received a punch. Moreover, the opponent seemed to be tireless. He fought harder and harder, without any sign of fatigue. His special power would soon be exhausted. Was he going to fail here today? Just as he was distracted, Ling Feng hit the young man with a straight punch in the chest. The young man with a buzz cut was instantly knocked out and hit the snowmobile behind him. His whole body was completely embedded in the snowmobile. The young man with a buzz cut suddenly spit out a mouthful of blood and looked at his chest. He could feel that his sternum had been shattered. He stood up with difficulty and looked at Ling Feng with a vigilant look, with a trace of panic in his eyes. Ling Feng looked at him with a distressed look. The two snowmobiles behind him, he had already taken a fancy to them, but he didn't expect them to be smashed. Ling Feng looked at the young man with a fierce look and teleported directly in front of him. He slapped the young man in the face with a slap. The young man rushed to block the blow, but Ling Feng was too fast and could not stop it. Pop! The young man was blown away more than 10 meters away again, and his body slid along the ground for several meters before stopping. Half of his face was swollen, which looked extremely funny. Ling Feng flashed and came in front of him. He lifted him up from the ground with his left hand. He used his right hand to hit the young man with more than 10 big blows in a row. He cursed while hitting him. "I'll let you destroy my car. How can I drive it?" The young man screamed in his heart. "What do you mean it's your car? This is obviously my car." Robbed and robbed so confidently. "I am a superpower from the storm base, but I was insulted like this. I can't accept it." Then he vomited blood and died. Ling Feng vented for a long time and found that the young man with a buzz cut had no movement. He used his fingers to probe the other's breath and muttered, "You are so weak. You died before I even exerted my strength. Alas, being invincible is so lonely." Ling Feng put the body of the young man with a buzz cut into the space and prepared to take out the crystal inside after returning. Not far away, several members of the storm base who had just been knocked to the ground by Ling Feng were still struggling on the ground. When they saw their boss being slaughtered, they were immediately disheartened. Even a superpower as strong as this person is not his opponent. They dared to provoke him just now. It's just looking for death. Seeing Ling Feng coming towards them, several people turned pale in an instant and their bodies kept shaking. They all begged for mercy. "Grandpa, we were wrong. Please spare our lives." "Grandpa, we are all forced to do this. I have an 80-year-old mother and a 3-year-old child. Grandpa, I am the only son in the family. I can't let our family die." Ling Feng listened to the voices of these people. His pupils shrank, and he said coldly, "If you don't shut up, I will send you to death immediately." Hearing this, several people immediately shut up, and the scene suddenly became quiet. Ling Feng took out a pistol and said in a deep voice, "I will ask you a few questions. You answer honestly." Several people nodded frantically immediately. "The first question is, where is the location of your base?" After hearing this, several people looked at each other with difficulty on their faces, and no one spoke. Ling Feng sneered and shot one of them in the head with a shot. The remaining people trembled immediately, and their eyes were full of fear. Ling Feng fiddled with the pistol and said lightly, "If no one speaks in 3 seconds, I will randomly select another lucky audience. 3, 2, I'll tell you. One of them was sweating profusely. His face was pale, and his whole body was shaking. "Say it," Ling Feng said indifferently. "The location of our foundation is in a mountain on Huangting Mountain in Jingzhou City." The man said tremblingly. Ling Feng nodded and continued. "Second question, what are you doing in Shangjing City? How many people are there in total?" The man looked at the other companions and seemed to be hesitant, but looking at Ling Feng's sharp eyes, he gritted his teeth and said, "We came here mainly to the Wangzhuang mine this time. Our boss said that there are things that superpowers need here, and we must get them. We sent a total of 5 teams this time, and each team is led by a superpower." "Wangzhuang mine." Ling Feng's expression changed constantly, and he kept thinking in his heart, something that is helpful to the superpowers? Could it be that it can help the superpowers improve their strength? If so, this Wangzhuang mine is really a good place. There may be something that I can use here. Ling Feng then asked a few people about the location of the mine. After not getting any other useful information, Ling Feng directly gave them a quick death. After dealing with everyone, Ling Feng looked at the 2 snowmobiles, and a happy smile gradually appeared on his face. Chapter 99. The appearance of these 2 all-terrain snowmobiles is very tough, and the interior space is also very spacious. Ling Feng directly put the 2 snowmobiles into the space for upgrading. After the upgrade was completed, Ling Feng took out another snowmobile. Shwa! With a sound, a brand new all-terrain snowmobile appeared in the open space in front of Ling Feng. Ling Feng's eyes lit up. He stroked the car with joy. After the upgrade, the snowmobile has a more majestic and domineering appearance. The body is also a circle larger than before, and it looks very solid. I just don't know how powerful it is. Ling Feng opened the door and got into the driver's seat flexibly. Prepare to test drive the power of the car. He started the car skillfully and stepped on the accelerator. Boom! The engine made a huge roar, and the car started instantly, and the speed broke 103 seconds. A car of such a heavy weight and a fast start is comparable to a top sports car. Moreover, the car's shock absorption effect is very good, and the driving experience is very comfortable. Ling Feng is very satisfied with this trophy. It is worthy of being produced by the system. It must be a fine product. After a test drive for a while, Ling Feng maintained the speed and drove directly towards the Wangzhuang mine. Since there is an opportunity here, I have to go and take a look. If I encounter materials that are useful to me, I can just collect them. The car drove at full speed and arrived near the destination in less than half an hour. Ling Feng came to the periphery of the Wangzhuang mine. In order to be cautious, Ling Feng did not drive the car directly into the mine, but got off the car outside the mine and put the car into the space. Ling Feng walked into the mine. The area of the entire mine is very large, almost equivalent to the area of a small village. After walking about 500 meters, Ling Feng faintly heard the sound of fighting. Ling Feng's expression changed slightly. The sound came from the abandoned building in front, and he moved to the direction of the sound to check. After arriving at the abandoned building, he finally found the fighting crowd. One of the parties was a familiar face, Du Yibai. Du Yibai was being attacked by 3 superpowers on the field. There were more than a dozen corpses lying on the ground, with blood flowing, and it seemed that they had just died. The remaining young men with injuries were surrounded by dozens of men with weapons. The young men all looked pale and desperate. Du Yibai was in a very bad state at the moment, with injuries on his arms and calves. Facing the fierce attacks of the 3 superpowers, Du Yibai seemed a little overwhelmed. According to this situation, he would be defeated in a while. Facing the decline, Du Yibai's face was pale, and he was still gritting his teeth to resist. Among the 3 besieged psychics, a short, ugly, middle-aged man laughed strangely. His eyes swept over Du Yibai and scrupulously. With an excited look on his face, he said to the person next to him, "Boss Zhang, I have to play with this chick for a while. It would be a pity to kill her like this." Zhang Zhibiao looked gloomy, and a trace of viciousness flashed in his eyes. He spoke coldly. "Don't worry, I don't want to kill him for the time being. She killed my brother, and I won't let her get away with it. All the brothers will have a share later. Today I'll let you try the high-end stuff." The other dozens of men heard this, frowned and smiled, and looked excited. "It's still good to be the boss. You can get this benefit by following the boss." Du Yibai's heart trembled, and he showed a look of determination. He said coldly, "I won't let you succeed, even if I die." "Die!" The middle-aged man with a short stature was even more excited when he heard this. He smiled and said, "I like it more if I die." The third psychic who had been silent was staring at Du Yibai at this moment, and the greed in his eyes was even more intense. However, he did not show it like the short middle-aged man. He just said to the short man in a low voice, "Huaqiang, do you want to join us?" Zhao Huaqiang looked at him, and the 2 smiled knowingly. The 3 approached Du Yibai step by step, ready to capture her. Zhang Zhibiao took the lead, and saw him wave his right hand and shouted, "Space fall." Du Yibai's body shook, and her originally agile body instantly became sluggish, and the whole person seemed to be trapped in a quagmire. Zhao Huaqiang saw that Du Yibai was blocked and rushed towards her. Du Yibai retreated backwards at a high speed, waving her hands at the same time. In an instant, several tiny metal fragments suddenly floated up from the ground and shot towards Zhao Huaqiang. Looking at the dense metal fragments attacking him quickly, Zhao Huaqiang's expression changed, and he quickly twisted his body to avoid it. However, the speed of the metal fragments was too fast, and the attack area was large. He couldn't dodge in time, and was about to be hit by the technical fragments. At the moment when the metal fragments were about to hit him, all the metal fragments suddenly fell from the air, as if they had lost their center of gravity. Zhao Huaqiang secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He was almost hit and seriously injured just now. In the distance, Zhang Zhibiao's mouth curled up slightly. He He looked at Du Yibai with a provocative look. Zhao Huaqiang adjusted his state and looked at another superpower. Lao Gao, let's go together. This girl's superpower is too difficult to deal with. Let's attack with all our strength. Gao Mingyuan nodded when he heard it. The two attacked Du Yibai from the left and the right. Both of them used their superpowers. Zhao Huaqiang's arms instantly became extremely thick, forming a sharp contrast with his thin body, which looked extremely weird. Gao Mingyuan's body gradually petrified, and in the end he turned into a stone man. Facing the fierce attack of the two, Du Yibai used her superpowers again, but this time it was obviously much more strenuous. Fine beads of sweat appeared on her forehead, and her pretty face became even paler. However, the moment the metal fragments she controlled came in front of Zhao Huaqiang and the others, the metal fragments fell again. Zhao Huaqiang saw this, the corners of his mouth slightly raised, and a trace of confidence in victory flashed in his eyes. They are both good at close combat. Now the two of them quickly approached Du Yibai. With their strength, the two can quickly subdue Du Yibai. Du Yibai took heavy steps and retreated. Her special ability could no longer be used. The battle just now had exhausted all her energy. Du Yibai felt cold in her heart, and Ling Feng suddenly appeared in her mind. If he were here, he should be able to defeat these people. It's a pity that I will never have the chance to see him again. Du Yibai's eyes were full of coldness, and her right hand grasped the dagger at her waist. She said secretly, "Even if I die, I will not compromise." Just as she was about to commit suicide, a lazy voice sounded. "Are you Zhang Jibiao?" Everyone looked at the person who spoke. I saw a handsome and cold young man slowly walking over. Everyone on the field had different expressions. Chapter 100. Du Yibai listened to the familiar voice and slowly opened his eyes. A trace of surprise flashed across his beautiful face. Ling Feng. It was him. How could he appear here? Did he come here specifically to rescue him? Du Yibai's mind was full of imagination, and he kept imagining the purpose of Ling Feng's rescue this time. At the same time, Zhang Jibiao on the other side squinted his eyes slightly and looked at this strange face. It seemed that he and he had nothing in common. "Who are you?" Ling Feng smiled harmlessly and said lightly, "Oh, I forgot to tell you. My name is Ling Feng, and I killed your dead brother." Zhang Jibiao frowned slightly, and a trace of murderous intent flashed in his eyes. He said in a low voice, "What did you say?" Ling Feng still looked at him with a smile on his face, and his smile was full of kindness. At this moment, Ling Feng was very happy, and he didn't expect to meet Zhang Jibiao here. "I really like his ability. Originally, I wanted to ask Du Yibai about the location of the Spark base, and then go over and crush him to death. I didn't expect to meet him here without any effort. It was a pleasant surprise." Ling Feng looked at Zhang Jibiao, whose eyes were red and his face was violent, still smiling, and said calmly, "You are not old, but your health is not good. If you can't hear me, you can come to me. I will say it again." Zhang Jibiao's expression was extremely gloomy. This kid who suddenly appeared dared to be so rude to him, which made him feel greatly insulted. Since he awakened his ability, no one has ever spoken to him like this. Could this person also be his superpower? Thinking of this, Zhang Jibiao looked at Ling Feng with a serious face. "Where did you come from, kid? Are you looking for death?" Zhao Huaqiang suddenly spoke with an arrogant look on his face. Gao Mingyuan, who was standing by, also looked at Ling Feng with a bad look and kept moving his wrists. He looked like he was going to fight. Ling Feng looked at them with disdain and said, "Trash!" Zhao Huaqiang's expression changed, and he shouted with anger, "Who are you calling trash? If you have the guts, I'll destroy you today." Ling Feng explained hurriedly with a smile in his eyes. "Hey, don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about everyone here. All trash." As soon as these words came out, everyone present had an ugly look on their faces. A group of Zhang Jibiao subordinates looked at Ling Feng with murderous intent. Ling Feng's words just now scolded everyone present. Gao Mingyuan stared at Ling Feng with a cold expression and said in a deep voice, Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you are a superpower. There are 3 powerful superpowers standing in front of you. Each of them is not weaker than you. You are so brave to provoke us. Young man, don't be too arrogant. Ling Feng looked at him with a defiant look. If you are not arrogant, are you still a young man? You are so frivolous. Gao Mingyuan was so angry that his blood was boiling, and his face was instantly filled with murderous intent. Ignorant child, you are looking for death. Remember the one who killed you, Gao Mingyuan from the Green Vine base. Gao Mingyuan shouted in a low voice, and his body instantly burst out at a very fast speed. His whole body was in a petrified state, and his body became very hard. Coupled with the extremely high speed, it was like a car running at full speed crashing into Ling Feng. It can be imagined that if an ordinary person was hit by him like this, he would probably be smashed into meat paste. Facing Gao Mingyuan's full-strength attack, Ling Feng stood calmly in place without any movement. Still calm and calm. Zhao Huaqiang, who was watching the battle from a distance, couldn't help but sneer in his heart when he saw Ling Feng standing there without any movement. Originally thought that this person was a superpower and had some skills. Unexpectedly, he was a pretender who could only talk big. Facing the attack of a powerful superpower, he couldn't even fight back and could only stand there stupidly waiting to die. Du Yibai frowned slightly, full of worry. He didn't understand why Ling Feng didn't fight back but stood there. Could it be that his superpowers were exhausted and he couldn't fight back? Obviously, he had no physical strength, but he still risked his life to save him. Du Yibai was deeply moved, and a mist gradually appeared in his eyes. Gao Mingyuan looked at Ling Feng with a grim smile on his face, and he was excited when he imagined the scene of Ling Feng being smashed into a pulp by him. Seeing Gao Mingyuan getting closer and closer to Ling Feng, his smile became more and more cruel. Ling Feng looked at the stone man running towards him and saw his flaws at a glance. Too slow and heavy. This ability is too useless, too poor in actual combat ability. Just when Gao Mingyuan's body was about to approach him, Ling Feng's body finally moved. He threw a punch quickly. The 2 bodies touched instantly. Crack! A dull sound rang out, accompanied by the sound of broken bones. Gao Mingyuan was knocked out and hit the wall of the abandoned building behind him. The entire wall was directly penetrated by Gao Mingyuan's hard body, and finally his body was deeply sunken into the wall inside the building, and he couldn't get it out. Large mouthfuls of blood kept spitting out of his mouth. The whole person's eyes were sluggish, and it seemed that he was not going to survive. Everyone on the field looked at this scene with a dull face. Du Yibai looked at Ling Feng's excited face, and a strange color flashed in his eyes. He is still so tough, not afraid of anyone, and his strength seems to be stronger than last time. It's only been a few days, and his strength has improved so fast. What a monster! The arrogant look on the faces of Zhang Zhibiao's subordinates disappeared immediately, and they all looked at him with their mouths wide open. Zhao Huaqiang had an expression of disbelief. Gao Mingyuan's strength was almost the same as his, and his strength was considered medium among the superpowers. His full-strength attack was easily defeated by the arrogant young man in front of him. This man is too strong. Even if he went up, I'm afraid the result would be the same. Zhao Huaqiang was scared for a while. Fortunately, he didn't act too impulsively, otherwise he would be lying there now. Zhang Zhibiao's eyes moved slightly, and he, who was originally at the back of the crowd, quietly retreated to the back without being noticed. Garbage should stay in the trash can. You don't believe me when I say you are garbage, and you have to prove it with your life. Why bother? Ling Feng shook his head helplessly, with a compassionate expression. Ling Feng walked slowly towards Zhao Huaqiang. Zhao Huaqiang watched Ling Feng approaching him, and his heart trembled. On the surface, he still looked gloomy. Are you sure you want to be an enemy of my conquest base? I tell you, the person behind me is extremely powerful, and you can't afford to offend him, Zhao Huaqiang said fiercely. Ling Feng smiled disdainfully. Oh, it's none of my business. Zhao Huaqiang heard this, and a flash of fear flashed across his eyes. Unexpectedly, this person would not be persuaded by soft or hard tactics. He hurriedly looked in the direction of Zhang Zhibiao and said, "Boss Zhang, let's go together." When he saw the direction where Zhang Zhibiao had just stood, he was dumbfounded